In this episode, we feature an interview with Erik Yaple, a member of the Monsterpocalypse development team. We felt that there was only one theme that could truly capture the vision of giant creatures destroying the world's greatest cities. A theme that, when heard, embodies all that is kaiju. A theme so monumental that all those who hear it know exactly the nature of the epic tales that these iconic films portray. And no, it's not Red Dwarf.
In the not-too-distant future, maybe Sunday AD, there was a guy named Joel, not too different from you or me. He worked at Gizmonic Institute, just another face in a red jumpsuit. He did a good job cleaning up the place, but his bosses didn't like him, so they shot him into space. We'll send the cheesy movies, the worst we can find. You'll have to sit and watch them all, then we'll monitor his mind. Now keep in mind, Joel can't control where the movies begin or end, because he used those special...
This is episode 16 of The D6 Generation, with your hosts Craig Gallant, Russ Wakelin, and Raef Hollywood Granger.
Wondering how he eats and breathes and other science facts. To repeat to yourself, it's just a show. I should really just relax. No mystery science theater 3000.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming, coming at you with the speed of an enraged giant super beast. This shout-out goes from Julia to Erica. Thank you for loving and supporting your self-acclaimed uber geek and gamer for the past 5 years. Happy anniversary, hun! I'm Geekly McNerdigan, your host. Today, as a guest panelist, we have Erik, the baddest man in gaming, Yaple. And our regular panelists are, as always, Russ, the biggest head in gaming, Wakelin, and Raef, the vaguest man in gaming, Granger. Let's begin. Issue number 1. As gamers, we are sometimes faced with a difficult prospect. As a group not 100% efficient in reproducing the normal way, often we must pass along our gamer heritage by snagging young people into the hobby through the use of gateway games. Whether it's checkers, chess, or 5-card Monty, we need to snare those unsuspecting children into the gamer community with activities especially geared toward their own developing interests. Question: were you trying to introduce an uninitiated person into gaming? How would you do it? Raef, who bribes the jibe to join the tribe?
I'd have him play Memoir 44.
Russ, to trick the mix, a kick too quick.
I'm liking Galaxy Trucker lately.
Erik, a threat on a pet will make them sweat.
I'd bust out my old copy of Wiz War.
Wrong! Once more, none of you are thinking outside the box. If you found yourself hanging upside down over a busy street by your toes, you'd damn well do whatever you were told to do, and you'd enjoy it eventually as soon as the blood stopped pooling in your noggin. Issue number 2. In 1997, Richard Garriott, the creator of Ultima Online, first coined the phrase Mmorpg, or Massively Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game. From the earliest examples in the 1970s, such as Maze War, to the first true graphical Neverwinter Nights, these games have created havens for those players trying to find somewhere to hide from the real world for a brief period of time. Wildly popular throughout the world, Western nations have spent over $1 billion a year on them for the past several years in a row. Question: if you were to create an MMORPG, what would you base it on and why? Russ, to dabble with the rabble, I'd be scrabbling a babble.
It would be War Machine.
Raef, my land would be grand with a canned bandstand.
All right, this is going to shock you. The Warhammer 40k universe.
Erik, destruction and noise are the toys for the boys.
I would have to go with the Smurfs.
I'm thinking of a world where the players assume the roles of workers in a paradise where 100% of the points they earn are pooled together with all the other players' points and averaged together, resulting in every player having exactly the same score all the time. I'm going to call it Socitopia. Issue number 3. Webster's Collegiate Dictionary defines collecting as 1A, to bring together into one body or place. 1B, to gather or exact from a number of persons or sources, such as collecting taxes. 1C, to gather an accumulation of objects, especially as a hobby. Essentially, it is the hobby or action of gathering a bunch of the same type of things together. Many gamers are collectors of one sort or another. Some collect armies, some collect dice, some gamers collect stories of how close every game they've ever played were, and yet they still lose. Question. Why are gamers so keen to collect things, and what one thing would you admit to collecting if held at gunpoint? Eric, cards regards, collecting guards.
Oh, man.
Russ, what if my riff and my skiff hits a cliff?
Half-used tubes of superglue.
Rafe, I'll shed tears or cheers for anything Britney Spears.
Comic books.
Wrong! Gamers collect things to gain a feeling of control and comfort in a world that has, for too long, battered them with wedgies and purple nurples. And you're all liars! Eric, you'd be collecting Sonny and Cher albums. Russ, stuffed unicorns, not for your daughters. And Race, all things celebutard. Issue number 4! The word kaiju in Japanese translates vaguely as strange beast, but is often simplified in English to monster. To the Japanese, werewolves, vampires, and Frankenstein's monster are all kaiju. However, in the West, the genre kaiju revolves around all things big and monstery. From Godzilla to Rodan, from Gamora to King Kong, society loves its big mutant monsters. Whether they're standing and roaring and angry symbols of our nuclear hubris, or slimy, disgusting reminders of our tendency to pollute the environment, those monsters' primary jobs are usually to destroy buildings and generally make a nuisance of themselves. Question. If you were kaiju, who would you be and why? Rafe, Gamera's a chimera made me run my black mascara.
That's easy, Godzilla.
Russ, I'm a cheerer for Gojira when he's getting nearer.
Ultraman, so the best of both worlds.
Eric, Rodan, for this man when you're checking the wingspan.
I'd have to go with Gorgadra.
Wrong! You have all forgotten your basic Japanese lesson. Rafe, you would be a cat she or Scottish fairy cat. Russ, you would be an Al-Mirage or Islamic one-horned rabbit. And Eric, you would be a Dubaku or Irish dog-fish hybrid. I, of course, would be King Caesar. And that's it for now. Thank you for listening, and good night.
You're listening to the D6 generation.
Hello, and welcome to episode 16 of the D6 generation. I'm Russ Wakelin.
I'm Craig Gallant.
And I'm Rafe Hollywood Granger.
Okay, so this week in episode 16, we're going to talk about, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about Monsterpocalypse with Erik Yaple.
Rafe, are there any numerical significances of 16 that you'd like to point out, or?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I
Sweet
would.
16, maybe?
Yes, in America, our teenagers celebrate Sweet 16.
Did you? If you celebrated Sweet 16, that actually explains some things.
Well, teenage girls do.
Ah, okay.
All right,
Yes,
well.
we in America. But in our Mexican community, in both America and in Mexico, they celebrate the quinceañera, which is the 15th birthday.
Which we just missed because it's now 16.
Yeah.
So that all having been said, we'd like to thank our advertisers this week, who are paintedfigs.com.
Thank you for coming back.
And they're always with us, and we have other ones in rotation. We'll be back next time. We need to thank all of our shout-out folks again, the guys who come on. Every Monday after the show airs, we put shout-out options up on eBay, and you can get your, you can bid, starting at only 99 cents, to get a little shout-out to you in one of our segments.
And thank you guys for the support. We love it.
Do appreciate it.
Keep it coming.
And also, we need to thank the folks at our iTunes folks here. They're really going to have been helping us out a lot because every time we get a review on iTunes, it helps our exposure on iTunes, which is still the predominant way everybody goes to get podcasts. And we'd like to thank those folks. And first in Canada, we're thanking Canada first this week. Why?
Not first, not last, but not least, but first and foremost.
First and foremost.
Our friends to the north.
We need to thank Steely Nicks.
I think that's Steel Links.
Oh, yes. So it could be Steely Nicks.
No, it's Steel Links.
Steel Links, who just wanted to hear his name on the show.
And you screwed it up.
There you go. Sorry. And John, who I didn't screw up, who also said great show.
Congratulations on being able to pronounce your own brother's name.
There you go.
Right.
And who's not in Canada. And in the U.S., we've got over 90 iTunes reviews now in the United
Thanks,
States. We're
guys.
very appreciative. So, Rafe, who's been giving us props in the U.S.?
What? Let's see. Wogcast, Orc Boss, so engrossed he missed his turn to work. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, he missed his exit. He was totally listening to the show.
I do that, and I'm not listening.
Orc Boss, turn now.
That's right. Now, X15, go.
That's good, Craig. Dark Angel 13, Excellence in Gaming. Deadpool 2002. Wives at... Oh, I can't. I'm not...
And by the way, Craig and I get the Excellence in Gaming reference, and we appreciate it.
Yes, we do.
Deadpool 002, and he thinks that Wives Attack is the most brilliant idea for a gaming podcast ever.
Should we start taking credit for that?
No, but we can't tell the women.
Actually, I think we can take credit for the idea, but the kudos go to the girls for an excellent podcast
they came
segment.
To us.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, they did?
Yeah,
I thought that was your guys' idea.
No, we can't even take credit.
God, you guys are even more lame than I thought.
All we can take credit for is not saying no.
That's right.
It's Storm Templar, who thinks the show is wonderful, hilarious, and informative. And Craig, who's next there from the U.S.?
Oh, I thought you were going to say who's what, and I was going to say clearly I am hilarious.
You are. I'll give you that.
Lancialo, Captain Misto, Gordon G Dog. That sounds. That's familiar.
Gordon, and he loved the non-numbered episode, which was your episode. There, you were.
Thank you, Gordo. Gordon is a local favorite.
Yeah. Used to run one of our favorite gaming haunts.
Used to run one of our absolute favorite gaming haunts. Midwest Wargamer, best tabletop gaming podcast ever.
Yep.
Best podcast ever.
Yeah. Pretty exciting.
Lavro, Warhammer 40,000. No, just 40.
Just Warhammer 40.
That would be World War II.
Well, Warhammer 40 with K was probably taken.
Gillitzer, best podcast of its kind. Thanks, guys. Those are awesome comments, and we love to hear them.
Quickly, in the UK, our friends over there, Catwalker81, Owen, our friend from Wales, says we're colonial wargaming views at their best. But I have a problem with that comment because if Wales is not part of England,
no. See, it's a technical term. Wales is part of the UK.
Oh, okay.
It's not part of England. It's like saying New Hampshire's not part of Massachusetts.
All right,
right.
We're not his colony.
But it's part of New England.
All right.
But yeah, technically we were his colony because Wales is part of the United Kingdom.
All right.
Jeez, history here on the podcast. There's nothing we don't teach.
Raef, who's next on the list here?
Alphen.
I love giving them the hard ones.
Plantag, best wargaming podcast around. And from Australia, we have no new reviews. But what, Russ?
But we're number one down under in the other games category.
So thanks to our Aussie friends.
Thanks to our Aussie friends. So that's our iTunes reviews. Now, I also forgot to mention in the show today, we're going to talk about with Erik Yaple about Monsterpocalypse, but we're also going to talk about Warhammer Online.
We are going to talk about Warhammer.
Well, no, only Raef and I are because Craig just couldn't stomach a whole hour about MMOs.
That's not true. I would have liked to be here, but
no,
real life interceded.
Yes.
Actually, you would have liked to, Craig. Is that because of the content? Like, I'm assuming if it was Wrath of the Lich King, you probably wouldn't want to have been there for that, right?
I don't know what that means, but I watched Warhammer Online for about a half hour at Gen Con, and I just loved it. So
right,
but that's okay. I can't wait to listen. I'm going to listen. It's okay. I don't need to be here all the time.
Okay, well, so we've been running a contest for the past 2 episodes, and what was that contest for, Craig?
That contest was for a multiply signed, pristine copy of the not yet available game from Flying Frog Productions, A Touch of Evil.
Ooh. Right.
Just in time for Halloween.
And Raef, what do they have to do to win this thing?
Listen, I'm on the page with the phone number, so I don't know.
What are you talking about? Okay. We would like to pause the show now so Raef could read our voicemail phone number. Raef, would you give out our voicemail phone number, please?
Okay, our voicemail phone number is 1-339-368-6051.
Which spells out what?
What does that spell?
That spells out, I love WoW.
Yeah, it does not spell that.
It doesn't actually spell.
And in fact, if you forget the phone number, here's the thing. We'd love to get voicemails and answer them on the show. We're not getting a lot, but we think voicemail is much more exciting than email. So give us a voicemail, and we'll play it on the show, and we'll answer your questions. You can either call that number. If you forget the number, go to the D6generation.com. And you can also send us a Skype message from there by clicking a button if you don't feel like calling a U.S. number from overseas.
Yep.
But now back to our contests.
But wait, we still like our email. We mean for radio purposes. It might be,
Yes, for using it on the show. Yes.
Yes.
Raef, Hollywood. Okay, so back to our contest.
Right, the
So,
contest.
although Hollywood's been here for every episode so far, he's apparently forgotten what the last contest was. So, Craig, what was the last contest?
Well, Russ, funny you
What do
should
they have
ask
to do to
that.
win it?
They had to come up with a theme song for the D6 generation to win it.
Right.
And did we have any entries at all, Russ?
We had quite a few,
We
actually.
had quite a few very nice songs.
Very, very good entries. And it came down to two that we really
did.
liked.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
one. There's a funny one. That honey one was funny.
The honey one was
But
funny.
it was very topical. It was
it was
an
funny.
insidey joke. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll play it at some point.
Little insider, maybe in a future episode. Also, there was a fun theme, proposed new theme for One Wives Attack,
Yeah.
which the ladies are listening to and they haven't decided about it yet.
They
but
like it a lot, but
they
they're
do
still,
like it,
they're
but they
still
kind of like their own
debating.
one too, so they're on the fence. But for the two for the show, we're going to play both of them here. We're going to play second place,
It was
and then we're
really
going to play
close.
first place. So here is our second place song. Nice one. That was a solid entry there, huh, Rafe?
I like that piano part really a lot.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that was by Greg Humphreys. And now, Greg, you didn't win, so Rafe, what does that make him?
A loser.
Why
No.
why did we have to go there?
I was just making a little.
It does.
No, I was
'Cause
making a joke related to last episode that Rafe totally missed and called him a loser. There's no losers on this show. It would
Not a
normally
winner.
make him not a winner, except it doesn't because
We
we like
liked
that
it
entry
so
so
much.
much. Greg,
Yes,
we're going to
we
send you a
definitely did.
consolation prize. So what we've got here is I've got 3 Monsterpocalypse models.
What's the name of the monster?
This is the Terracon.
Terracon,
It
who
is-
is basically the spokes monster for
Right.
Monsterpocalypse.
And he's very Godzilla-like. He is. There's his base form. There's his ultra form you get in the box, but then we're going to throw in as an additional bonus.
The mega form, only available at Gen Con.
Right. So, Greg, thanks so much for that. Email us your address, and we will make sure those get sent out
We
to
will
you.
send these little pack of monsters right to your door.
Because he obviously put a lot of work into that song, and it was very
Yeah,
good.
it was great.
Yeah, I really love that piano part.
Next.
Even though he did lose.
Not a winner. There's no losers on this show, and he gets a prize anyway. So there you go. Now on to our winner, who's got sort of 3 different themes going on here in this song, which we kind of like. We're going to be able to chop it up using different parts of the show. So here is our winning entry.
The new theme to the D6 generation.
Right. Any moment now.
And now.
Here it comes. My computer is kind of slow tonight. I'm not sure what the problem is.
It has a cold.
It does. have a
Poor
cold.
workman who blames his tools.
Here it comes.
Love it.
there's just some great guitar and drums in there. I want that on a rock band.
Yeah, he was rocking on that thing.
He was, and that was JC's. I think it was his high school band. He said did that originally. So they're pretty good rockers there.
And you know what? Who JC is?
Who is JC?
A winner.
He is a winner. So JC, send us your address, and we will send out the autographed edition of Craig.
A Touch of Evil.
Excellent, and that theme song will be part of the show now for many years to come, or at least a while.
Craig, you want to touch my evil, don't you?
Oh God,
Well, I don't even know what that means.
I don't know what it means either. Okay, so that's our cut. Now, of course, we are now contestless, but only for this moment because now we're going to announce a brand new contest. And Raef is becoming our puzzle master. So Raef, Craig, sorry. Craig is becoming our puzzle master.
I was going to say Rafe's something.
Raef, I think, is
Master
still on the
something.
I think Rafe's still on the page of the phone number.
Master, I don't know. He, like fisherman? What is he, bait stuff? I don't know.
So, Craig, Puzzle Master Gallant, what is our puzzle for this week? What is our contest?
You mean a contest? Oh, okay.
That's the one.
Well, we've got Monsterpocalypse coming up in just a couple weeks.
Yes.
Its official
October.
release is October 10th. And we happen to have a whole bunch of stuff that was given to us by Privateer Press, who has been awesome
Right.
throughout this process.
What they did was we bought some ourselves.
Yep, we bought
And then
some ourselves.
They sent us a bunch
Yep.
to play test with and then give away.
Yep,
So we broke open the boxes.
we did indeed.
We play tested.
We did indeed.
We may have taken some for our own factions.
We may or may... No. We do not have anything, numbers-wise, that we didn't have already from
That's
the
right.
stuff we bought.
That's right.
We may
So-
or may not have
But
traded.
then what we did, which was cool, was we made two very nicely fleshed out factions
Very
from what we
nice.
had. We have the Martians here to give away.
Martian invaders.
Yep, and they look like little UFOs with little flyers. And we have the Cthulhu dudes.
I believe those would be the Lords of Thule.
Yeah.
Thus, maintaining the IP.
Right, the Cthulhu dudes. So we have those two to give away. The monster, their ultra form, and lots of units to go with them.
Yep.
And one of all the starter gear that normally comes in the starter box.
Yep.
So the dice, the wound tracker, and the maps.
Yep.
So what do they got to do to win some of this stuff here, Craig?
Well, we've had a little bit of feedback on how artistically demanding we've been recently.
We have been.
And we have been.
You got to
And
write
that's- you know
poetry.
what?
You got to be able to artist.
You
You got to
know,
be a true
we
artist.
hold ourselves to a very high standard, and we like to think that the D6 generationers out there, I don't think that's going to stick. Anyway, that our listeners, we hold them to a high standard also, but we hear your pleas
Right.
as they echo up to the heavens. And we've decided...
Evans, he's getting a big head, Rafe.
Very poetic. We've decided what we're going to do is, on our website, we will have one of the images from Monsterpocalypse.
Okay.
Go to our website, look at that picture,
Right.
and give us a caption.
Right.
And to promote our voicemail, we want you to leave your caption on voicemail.
Right.
Because we think that's going to be really fun if we can just play a whole bunch of those 2 episodes from now.
So Hollywood, why don't you give us that voicemail number again?
Oh, well, I got to switch tabs. But luckily, I
Called him out. See, he was not ready.
There you go.
Since I have Vista, which does work wonderfully well, I might add, I have now switched tabs, and our voicemail is 1-339-368-6051.
Bravo.
Which, if you spell it out on your phone, it says, I love Hollywood.
It does.
It doesn't spell that either.
Or if you can't remember that number again, go to the D6generation.com and check out our number there. And if you don't want to call a phone number, you can also use a Skype message
But you're also going to have to go to d6generation.com to see the picture.
the picture. And on the right-hand side will be all of our voicemail information.
Yep.
So here's the deal. We're going to take all these entries, okay, and it's going to be over 2 shows. So not next show, but the show after that it'll be due. We'll give you the exact date next episode. So we'll be looking for the finalists, the entries all by show 18.
Yep.
And what we're going to do is we're going to go through these links. We're going to cull through them.
We are going to cull through them. Nice verb.
And the top 3
Top 3.
will get prizes. First, second, and third.
That's right.
I feel like I'm on Sesame Street or something.
That means only 4 and lower are what, Rafe?
I don't know.
Oh,
Not
good
winners.
man. Good man. See?
He doesn't remember. All right. So, first place will get to choose either the
Lords of Thule
or
Martian Invaders.
Martian Invader guys. And first place will also get the additional starter kit gear. They're going to get the wound tracker, the dice, and the maps, and the rulebook.
Yep.
Second place is going to get the...
On the map. Remember that song, Russ? On the map. On
Thank
the
you,
map.
Dora. The second place is going to win the other faction, the other nice faction we built, but they'll have to get themselves a starter kit.
Which they'll be able to get, which they'll hear later on in this episode.
Right. Because
there is a, what is it called? The...
counter
strategy guide?
No, there's a counter set. Listen to our Erik Yaple interview coming up. He'll explain all that.
I forget already.
And then third place is going to get our Monsterpocalypse grab bag. So we've got a bunch of extra little Monsterpocalypse guys who couldn't fit in either of these factions.
Now they get a monster, right?
There's a monster. Yeah, there's a monster.
Yeah,
in there.
you get a monster and a bunch of units.
And a bunch of units.
Not all from the same
It all work
faction.
together, but it's a nice little grab bag. And then
and
if
the
you
game
get into the game,
you can totally do
yes,
a monster and multiple guys from lots of different
so it's something to look at, check out, see what you think of the game.
Yeah.
So in any case, you got a pretty good chance here of winning Monsterpocalypse stuff because we don't get thousands of entries in these shows or these things. Okay, so you got one in, top three. That's a pretty good chance.
Yep.
So give it a go.
Yep. And make them funny, man. Let's have some humor.
Yeah, we're going to grade high marks for humor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Anything you want to add to that there, Hollywood?
No, I'm just lamenting the fact that last episode you guys never did get me that pizza.
You know what I had for dinner tonight, Rafe?
What'd you have?
Pizza. It was good.
Nice.
Too.
Actually,
Sal's pizza.
I got here early, and I had a couple pieces, too.
There you go. See?
Dang, you're kidding me. I had to race home,
I had Sal's
race
pizza.
to practice, and race on air. That's what I had to do.
Nope, I went to the open house. I had a pleasant evening with all of my students' parents. After kickboxing, I had a very full day.
Nice. Yeah.
And still had time for some pizza at Shea Wakeland.
Nice.
Yeah. Great. Rub it in. Okay.
It
Great.
was delicious, too.
All right, so today's show, we've already mentioned, we're going to interview Erik Yaple, talk about what he's done and Monsterpocalypse.
The baddest man in gaming.
That's right. And we're also going to talk about war, but Warhammer Online, Age of Reckoning.
Yay.
But first, it's time now for Achievements in Gaming. So, Rafe, we're going to change our Achievements in Gaming format today, but first, Rafe, who is Achievements in Gaming brought to us by this week?
I love this. This is my favorite part. It is brought to us by Hail from Owen of the E. Drago D-Wheel Club in Wales.
It's not actually from Hail. Owen is saying Hail.
Yes, it's the opening. I wanted to quote it exactly.
Yeah, try it again. ...
Hail from Owen of the E. Drago D-Wheel Club in Wales, who would like to point out that despite what Craig tells you, we in Wales never, ever, ever say "och." Now get it right, you bloody colonials. Och.
See, first of all, I don't understand how he never gets called on his pronunciation of these Welsh words, because you know they're wrong.
You know they're wrong.
Second of all, how do I get cast as the mastermind behind the anti-Welsh movement in America?
I don't know, but you did say "ach."
I did. And
you came off as more of a Scotch person than a Welsh person there. That one.
But the funny thing about Owen's messages now is that I hear them in his own voice.
I know, it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
But could Owen, just for me, if you could give, like, I mean, I'm assuming there's maybe like a 5% chance that the planets aligned and Rafe is actually pronouncing all these Welsh words correctly. If not, how about a little love, man?
How about a voicemail message on our handy-dandy voicemail line?
There you go.
And let us know the correct way to pronounce these things.
Your club, which is cool, and
right.
the what I'm assuming is the salutation at the end,
right?
Which, just for the record, Rafe pronounced "diolch."
Right.
I like how I pronounced it. No, I didn't put a German in.
No,
Did you diolch?
He did better than
No,
I could have done.
Diolch.
Diolch.
All right. So let's get on to
anyway.
what we've been playing since the last show.
Okay.
So since the last show, we're going to change our format a little bit here. Just kind of go through everything we've all been working on together in a big pile.
Buzzsaw.
Right. So first of all, I got to break out Descent Road to Legend again. Haven't played that in a while. And we had a good time with the guys down there at the Game Castle with that. So we're going to try that a little more. And then, as Rafe mentioned earlier, we got to play Monsterpocalypse.
Yep.
Rafe and I did. And then Craig and I played a couple weeks ago. Having fun with that game. And we're going to do a review of that soon.
Very soon.
Not this episode.
I
We
liked
talked
it.
to Eric about it. Yeah. Did you like
I liked it? I did. I liked it better than when I had witnessed it at Gen Con. I think all the buildings and the full game, I had a fun time. I wouldn't choose it over Hordes of War Machine, but it was fun.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a
But I
good
mean,
game.
it keeps coming back to those demos were a disservice to the
That's
game.
a lesson. You got to really watch your demos. I mean, video games happen too. You put a bad demo out there. And it kills
Well,
your
the demo,
product.
I think the demo was. I think it'll overcome the demo.
Yeah,
but those demos were unfortunate.
Yep.
Disappointed in the demos.
Yeah. And also got to play. It's actually a 2007 product, but it was been out of print for a while. Just came back in the U.S. Galaxy Trucker. Was able to play that with Russ and Raef and Sid, and actually
You played with Russ?
I played with my. I participated in a game with Raef. I narrowly avoided that.
You almost said it.
I did.
I would have loved that.
But I also played with my wife.
That's almost
move
as good.
on, man. This is
But,
this is not going anywhere
But
good.
I like to describe this game as Ice Road Truckers in space. It's really good fun. Raef, what'd you think of
Now, that
Galaxy
doesn't
Truckers?
really describe anything to anybody. So what's the game?
Well, we'll review it someday. But it's basically you build
I
your
didn't say
spaceship.
review it.
You build your spaceship, and then you take
Out of tiles.
and you take it into space, and you try to get
Real space?
yes.
Wow.
You try
How
to
much
get it.
does this game cost?
You try to get it through try to pick up some cargo and get it to your destination with least amount of damage possible.
That doesn't. All right. There's a big pile of tiles. You put them on your card.
This would be
And
the
then-
non-review review.
Right. And you go through and you, like Russ said, you build a spaceship. But what's fun about it is it's kind of random, it's kind of quirky, and these little things blow parts of your spaceship up, and it's fun.
Okay, Rafe, when you're sitting though, right? You sit when you play this game. Are you on the edge of your seat, or
Oh,
is your
jeez.
back up against the chair back?
Middle.
Middle?
Moving,
Okay.
moving on. We'll take an achievement, though, for Galaxy Trucker. In case. Also, I got to play... Now, here's an interesting little... I got an aside here. I got to play Pillars of the Earth. But
good
here's
story.
here's what happened. So, 2 weeks ago, right after we recorded the last show, that Sunday, my wife, Nicole, says, from Wives Attack, she says...
This is
"Geez,
actually why the last show was a little bit late.
It is. She says, I kind of feel like I need to play another game, and maybe we should go out and get a game. Now, for those of you who are married out there, here's a
Get
tip.
out. She said that?
Yeah, here's a tip. When your wife says to you, let's go get a board game, it's like your wife saying, you know what? Our TVs look a little old. Maybe we should get one of those newfangled flat screens. Or, gee, do you think it's time to upgrade the computer? When your wife says those words to you, you do not hesitate.
No thought required.
No, because if you let it go too long, she may rethink this plan and decide that, we really shouldn't do that now. You got to jump while strike while the iron's hot. So you get her in the car.
You're such a geek. I thought you were going to say that's like your wife saying, honey, I think I'm going to head upstairs a little early.
No, dude, that's a whole different topic. I'm talking about.
No,
when
I
you're
don't. I
trying-
thought that was the analogy.
No,
Go
I'm
ahead.
just telling you now. When you're a geek, when you're a technology nut or whatever, and you want to get the new toy for your house, and your wife says, I think I might like that, you go. So I got her in the car, got the kids in the car, and she's like, well, you sure? It's kind of close to bedtime. No, we can make it. We jam all in the car, go racing down to Myriad Games, and an hour before they close, and went through and looked at all the different games, and she picked them out kind of by thing. She picked up Pillars of the Earth, and that is a great game. And you know what else? She picked up Pillars of the Earth, brought it home, read through the rule book, and taught me the game, which was great. And it's kind of funny, too, because she pulls out the rule book, and it's 11 pages. And she says, oh, it's 11 pages. That's kind of long. And I'm thinking, 11 pages? That's awesomely short. It'll be an easy game to learn. But actually, it was a very easy game to learn, and a lot of depth, and she's really enjoyed it. We played it several times already, and it's a good game. So we'll talk about that.
This Wives Attack thing's really working out for you, Russ.
It is. It's doing great. So we'll get an achievement for my wife buying a game for the family. That was pretty exciting. Now, Raef, you got me to try Agricola with you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how did that go?
Well, go ahead, Craig. Insert comment
I
here.
got nothing.
Oh, I thought you were going to do your
I don't-
lead farmer.
I do not.
He's giving
The
up.
comic timing is completely off,
Right.
Rafe.
Oh, okay.
Remember
Sorry.
me? I'm the hilarious one.
Is that what it is?
That makes me the wonderful one. Yes. So
Touche.
Russ was very generous in wanting to check out the game, and he was a good sport, and he even liked it. He said it's not exactly my thing, but yeah, I mean,
You know
I
what?
think you
It's funny
enjoyed
about that
aspects
game.
of it.
I liked it, and I could see the strategy, and I could see what appeals to people. But you know what? I didn't enjoy the game not because it was about farming. It was because I found that I had to really study the board and manage a lot of information in my head in order to see my strategy.
Yeah.
And I guess that may sound kind of strange coming from someone who plays War Machine and everything, but this game for me, I just couldn't. I felt like I had to constantly reread the little cards to figure out what was going on, and I felt it was hurting my head.
Wow.
I don't know, which is weird because I know it's
not what I thought that was going to happen there.
Yeah, not that I thought it was a deep game. I mean, it's got some deep strategy though, and I could.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
but I definitely felt like I had to constantly reevaluate, and it was just.
Yeah, I don't have that problem, but yeah, that's what you were saying you had. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I could see why people like it. Then also got to play some Battlestar Galactica again there, Craig.
Yep, I'm not gonna speak for anybody else, but I got to tell you, since we've started the podcast, Battlestar Galactica has seen more play than any game I own.
Yeah.
I mean, and I just keep.
Your board's already looking worn.
It is. We've played it into the ground already.
And the humans won.
The humans won
in our game.
Finally, all
the
right,
game
nice.
castle.
Yep.
And then I played again with the Elite Gaming Snobs couples.
Game
right.
night. So achievement for winning at the game castle, and then you got an achievement for playing with snobs.
Yeah, there we go. Well, one man.
Is Andrew one of those? Is Andrew?
Yes, Andy is a snob.
So Andy's got to cross the line. He's in the snob and nuts. He gets to play twice.
He does get to play twice.
Achievement for sneaky Andy.
Andy. What's that, Rafe?
Here's what I like about the Elitist Gaming Snobbers Club is we now have got to meet Andy, and Andy comes and plays on Tuesdays.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
That's a good bonus.
And actually, Brian came that one time.
Oh, yes, Brian, too. Yep.
Yep.
Achievement for Brian being sneaky.
There you go. And I would imagine we're probably going to see more of Brian when Monsterpocalypse starts to rear its ugly head, because he's the guy that owns everything ever made for Dreamblade times 5.
Oh wow!
So he's probably got a lot like Eric. Anyway, so the BSG game we played at the Elite Gaming Snobs, I totally thought we were going to win as the humans.
Yep.
We had it in the bag. We needed to make one more jump. Okay,
Yep.
That's all we needed. And we didn't know who the last Cylon was.
Uh-oh.
And they revealed themselves in the last turn they possibly could. And their Cylon reveal power was the take 5 damage markers and apply 2.
Oh.
And we only had 1 food left. And there was no stopping us. And she pulled the food. It was
killed you.
It was Carrie, it was Brian's wife. She pulled the food, put it down the table, and we lost. That literally
she
one
gets an
move
achievement
away.
for brilliant Cylon play.
It was
Nicely
and
done.
that was her first game, and
She
that
must
was
have been grinning from ear to ear.
She was
just totally owning the table.
Well,
That's
actually,
awesome.
she's very calm and laid back, so it was more like,
look at that.
I guess we win.
Look how she's one of those.
Look,
what happened there?
You didn't make it.
Oh, look, full house. I guess that beats
Exactly.
2 pair.
And so that was a nail biter. I literally thought that game was in the bag, and it was hard fought all the way. And then, this is the ability I have.
Right.
Oh, you mean there's only a 3 in 8 chance I don't get the thing that I need? Oh, look, I got. And it was done. We also played Cutthroat Caverns that night, which was great. A lot of fun. I won. Karen gets crazy playing that game.
She says she really likes it.
Her hands shake. She gets so nervous.
Oh yeah. I gotta try the expansion. You gotta bring that next week.
The expansion makes it cool,
right.
But there's so much buy-in there. She's very competitive, as you all know by now.
Yeah.
But it whole new territory of
achievement for addicting your wife to a game,
and it's crazy.
Yeah,
and she was so upset when I won.
Oh,
we didn't talk.
Hey,
at all
achievement for beating
home.
your wife. There you go.
What's that?
I don't beat my wife.
I was going to say, get yourself a
Well,
white
I guess I'm never going into politics now that that's on record. And then I have a new word I'd like to coin. I am a gamer. Hi, my name is Craig, and I am a gamer.
Hi, Craig.
I am also a gamer. And what I mean by a gamer is a gaming voyeur. I just love watching.
For new terms.
There you go. I love watching people play games. And you guys all know that about me.
Definitely you do.
He likes to watch.
Right? I like to. Oh, jeez.
I take an achievement for that by myself, baby.
Please,
I just pay back for Earl here.
Whatever. Anyway,
that was a
it's
good
good
one.
to be the guy with the button. I'll take 3.
Nice. Somebody take the button away from him. So anyway,
That's what she said.
I just want to give a shout out and a thanks to the Game Castle because there was so much 40K and Warhammer Fantasy going on that I just had 3 hours of just going from table to table and watching some awesome GW goodness, and it's a blast. It's really, I think, possibly one of the most fun activities as a gamer that I have. I just love watching other people play games.
Oh, did you see us playing Descent? Because Ian brought us fully painted. Ian, our friend Ian, has every model in the Descent set painted.
Yep,
which is crazy if you think about that. It's a lot of models.
It's really beautiful.
Nuts.
And the funny thing is, for those of you who know Descent, the power of the monsters is color-coded, so there's the regular monsters and the red monsters, and Ian has had every monster has some part of it painted red, like the skirt of the skeleton or whatever, and he was getting violently offended because Russ had to keep flipping the monsters over to check their color because he couldn't remember their skirts where the...
Well, it was far away.
And Ian was yelling, "It's the skirt!
Look at the red skirt, man!"
It was great.
That's funny.
It really kicks the whole game up a notch.
It is awesome.
Beautiful.
All right, so what have we been doing for modeling? Anybody doing any modeling since last show? Oh, I've been. I'm on a quest here. And I'll talk about this in a minute, but I'm working on honing my War Machine skills, and so Legends is out. So I've gotten the new Warcaster Jeremiah, who's the cool mounted guy for Signar. Yep. And he's got the Civil War hat, those little slopes of war hats.
Very nice.
I got him all assembled and green stuffed, and I'm getting ready to prime him. So that's my modeling. What have you been working on, Craig?
Oh, not much. I did finish the entire Space Wolf army.
Here we go.
Not
much, just 2,000 points of Space Wolves.
I primed it. I base coated 2,000 points of Space Wolves, and I'm on the second coat of highlights right now, actually.
See, and this is why I'm playing War Machine now, because in the time you can do 2,000 points of Space Wolves, I can do one guy.
Well,
that's why I got to stay with the low model count.
Well, that's
games,
the thing. I mean, I do sacrifice a bunch of my gaming time during the play production season, but I'm stuck in the afternoon with nothing to do by myself, so I paint. And then
Go ahead, Craig. I thought you were done.
I am now collecting a metric buttload of Assault on Black.
Oh, you should have seen the deals going down. Game Castle got in a bunch of these of copies of this thing, of the new thing, and there were like major trades going on. People buying like 2-3 boxes, slicing the stuff up. It was crazy.
Yeah, I was a regular rogue trader that day.
Yes, you were.
And so I don't know why am I doing that? I don't know. Could it be there's a project on the horizon?
Yeah, I'm guessing it works. So Granger, you been doing any modeling at all?
Yeah, I do have a modeling update. I finally finished the Graveguard, so I put on all their arms.
Nice.
Right. Very nice.
Yes, I put on their shields and put on their heads and their shoulder pads, and I'm ready to go.
And I don't think the listeners fully understand the significance of that because you had total brain lock on that unit.
Man,
like
it was tough.
That stopped you from playing games or working on that army or even touching the game.
It was deadlocked.
It did. It did stop me in my tracks.
So that's great that that's done.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of modeling, and back to Gordon G. Dog when he left his shout out for us up there. We're just talking about great voyeur games. I kind of miss seeing all that Flames of War stuff that Gordon would do.
Well,
and he'd always have something on his table.
Guys at Game Castle.
Actually, there are a couple guys that play there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me.
They do all kinds of different historical.
Napoleonics and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And in other news. So this is kind of dovetails into my training camp I'm in now, because what I want to be able to do is, in a couple episodes ago, Craig and I reported on the fact that we went to the hardcore team tournament, right?
Yep.
For War Machine 750, and we got totaled. I mean, we were just destroyed. And the theme for that song was "I'm a loser." That show was a loser baby. We just had a really tough game. I mean, to the point where I got a prize for those who didn't hear the episode for being the worst beaten gamer there, basically.
You beat me because of the age of your last opponent.
Yes,
basically.
I lost to a 10-year-old in the final round.
Yeah.
So, and I felt really, because we talk about War Machine on the show, I think I do okay at the game. I know the rules, I know what I'm supposed to do. I just got owned. Again, this was like sort of the best of the best. The team tournaments from all the way from, many, many states away coming in. So I should have gotten owned because I don't play enough. But, so I'm listening to 40K Radio.
Yeah.
Last episode.
Right.
And Spencer, and one of his other lads over there, not Phil, but his other
new guy.
I apologize. I forget his new freshman's name.
Well, they call him the freshman more than they call him by his name.
That's part of the problem. So they went up to a Ard Boys tournament.
Yeah.
Now Spencer's the host of 40K Radio, going to a 40K Ard
You're
Boys
not going to
tournament.
embarrass Spencer, are
No,
you?
he already embarrassed himself. He had a really bad day. Apparently, everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong.
And his day just got a little bit worse because you decided to
And
piggyback on it?
he came out of 16 players. He came in 13th. So Spencer, I'm not picking on anybody. I am sending out
He beat 3 people. How many did you beat?
none. But the point is, that's not the point.
Oh, okay.
The point is that I felt bad because here I am, talking about War Machine and talking it up, and I got hammered at it in these hardcore events, and he did the same thing. So I feel
He
like
didn't do the same thing.
he came in.
You got a prize for coming in the biggest loser, and it wasn't a D6G thing. So there were losers.
I got more
and
prizes
you
than he
won.
did. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying I can feel your pain, Spencer. I feel what you experienced, and so this one's for you.
Wow. He just took a very effeminate sip of a diet root beer.
Yeah, of a root beer.
Yeah, Spencer, you
Sorry,
should
Spencer.
feel honored
Best
on
I
that
can do,
one.
buddy.
I don't know.
All right, that's my achievements. Anything else, guys?
No, I'm pretty much achieved out.
That's achievements.
Yeah, me too.
You're listening to the D6 generation. We just love playing around.
Need to add a big unit to your current force and don't feel like painting that many grunts? Or maybe you want to start a new army and really don't have time to paint it up. That's where PaintedFigs.com can help. For 3 years, their staff with over 20 years of experience in the industry have been providing gamers with high-quality, affordable paint jobs on miniatures from the most popular games, including Flames of War, Warhammer 40,000, Fantasy, War Machine, Hordes, and even a variety of board games. Their full-service packages include the cost of the models themselves at wholesale prices, assembly, painting, and basing. Because they're able to get the models wholesale, you end up with a package appearing on your doorstep full of ready-to-play models at only the fraction over their retail price. Their name says what they do. PaintedFigs.com. High-quality miniature painting at the lowest rates on Earth, even with shipping. Be sure to let them know the D6 generation sent you. And now, what's in the news? Brought to you by Solarius. On sale now, Solarius, a card game of 7 races. Only one of them can win. Take control of powerful wizards with endless spells and try to destroy your opponent. Find us at www.wargameminiatures.co.uk and also on eBay. Electronic Arts has announced that Warhammer Online Age of Reckoning has achieved over 500,000 players within the first week after launch. EA claims this makes War the fastest-selling new MMO in history. The real question is, how many users will be on after a certain Lich King decides to unleash his wrath? Fantasy Flight Games has recently launched their official Battle Lore page on their website now that they've acquired the product line from Days of Wonder. There isn't much on the new page yet, except for a PDF file with the entire new rulebook. A great way to find out if this game is for you. And finally, Spartan Games has announced their first new model release for their naval combat game, Uncharted Seas. Orcs, humans, dwarves, and dragon lords all get new toys, along with the addition of sea monsters. Naval combat with sea monsters? Sign me up. And that's what's in the news.
Hi, I'm Spencer.
And I'm Philip.
And we're the hosts of 40K Radio. Each episode, we cover the world of Warhammer 40K, including tips and tactics, news, product reviews, and our take on it as well, no matter how warped or twisted it may be. So grab a beer and go to 40kradio.com to check out the world's #1 Warhammer 40K podcast.
40K Radio reminds you to drink hard, game responsibly.
Welcome back. Well, now we want to talk about one of the most highly anticipated MMOs in a while. And Raef, what would that be?
The Wrath of the Lich King. No, just kidding.
No, that's an expansion. We're talking about a new MMO.
That would be Warhammer Online.
Now, how excited are you? Because pretty much since episode 1, you've been wanting to have a large segment on MMOs. And Here we are getting ready to talk for who knows how long about war. And yet, sadly, you haven't played this one.
No. And that is true because I was looking forward to. Well, first of all, I'm very excited. I'm hoping this segment alone takes 3 hours, personally. But no, that's just a joke, folks. It's a joke. Very excited we're talking about MMOs. I'm very excited we're talking about Warhammer Online. I really did want to check out the game. From what I can hear, what we're going to get into, they made some great innovations to the MMO platform. And what Russ is alluding to is my laptop will not play the game. Boo-hoo.
Right. And we'll get to that in a minute on terms of specs for this doohickey. But let me just start with a little bit of intro about this. And we've talked about, Raef and I have both talked about our MMO experience in the past in the show. But for our new listeners, mostly in the D6 generation, we don't talk about video games. We do occasionally allude to the fact that we play them. But I have played quite a few MMOs. I've played ever since Island of Kesme on CompuServe, but ones that people have actually heard of would include Ultima Online, Asheron's Call, WoW for a little bit. I played
Age of Conan for a bit, right?
Not Age of Conan, but Dark Age of Camelot I did play.
It's Dark Age of Camelot, yep.
And a bunch of other small ones. I've never gotten like super into an MMO. I never played anything else but I do enjoy playing them for a while and getting to see the world and things like that.
Now, wait a minute. I thought you were... I know you didn't maybe run the guild, but weren't you pretty deep into EQ with the guild and everything?
Not EverQuest, but I was involved with Ultima Online in the guild for a little while. Not as heavily as my brother got, but I was involved for a little while with that.
Okay.
But yeah, now you've been in WoW now for how long? And Lord of the Rings, how long have you been involved with those for?
Okay, here's what's scary. I have a new mod, and it shows exactly how long I've been in WoW, and I've been in WoW now for 8 days.
8
Do you know
days.
what I'm saying when I say 8 days?
Yeah, so that's 8 times 24 is how many hours total you've played WoW.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is not bad, because there's people out there that have played it for 60 days.
I know, but that's 8 days of my life in a
get
fake
back.
world. But
Yes.
but yes, I don't remember the month I began WoW. I started with Latro, leveled the guy up to like 40, and now I have a 46 level guy in WoW. So I enjoy it. I have a hot-cold relationship. Monday night I played it. I had a blast. Wednesday night I logged on. I went, meh, this is boring. Logged off and watched Heroes. So I think it works for me, Russ, because I have that ability to go, this is not what I'm in the mood for, and I don't suffer through it then. You know?
Now, see, I am more of a hardcore, I consider myself a video game connoisseur. I like to try a lot of different video games, and I really get into them, play the story through, solve them, and then move on. MMOs I kind of like to get into and see what they're like, and then I just get, whatever, after a while, after, about 10 or 15 hours. So for me, when I look at a video game, and I want to talk about this a little bit, because I'm not looking at this as a hardcore MMO player, like, boy, I know everything about MMOs, and I love my WoW, or I love my EQ, or whatever, and I want to know what is war going to do for me. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm coming from this as I am a video game player. I like to explore interesting worlds and lose myself in another place for a while and see a neat story or whatever, and then I like to come out again. And so from my point, and for me, good video game value, because it's important, I think people look at things, because I want to talk about something I mentioned to Sid the other day, is for me, when I buy a game like Gears of War or Halo 3, if I get 20 hours out of that game, that $60 purchase, that feels like a good deal to me, especially when you consider the cost of a movie. So for me, a video game that can last 20 or 30 hours is great. So if I get that of a $40 to $50 MMO purchase, I still think I don't got robbed. I think I had a good, as a good expenditure, my fun money.
I like your analogy, because I like that's perfect for you. You are a video game connoisseur. You definitely like to sample the escargot of video game as well as the flan of video games.
Right, well, yeah, you got to have, exactly. You can't be
whereas me, on the other hand, which is neat, because this is where we can intersect. As a connoisseur, you're enjoying war,
right.
and I don't know what my analogy would be, but I seem to dabble in a few games, barely play them. Like Rush, you'll suggest 4, 5, 6 different Xbox titles. I'll barely play, but then one of them will really hook me in, like
right.
BioShock, for example. And I'll play that thing all the way to the end, very slowly, too. So I get way more video game hours than a lot of people do, because I'm very slow when I play. But,
right.
but I'm happy playing it,
So I'm more the shotgun approach, and you're more the dive in and swim. So what's interesting about this is when I was speaking with our stunt gamer, Sid, who's been on the show before in the past, and he was asking me all these interesting questions, like, what's the end game like, and can you go back to the beginning once you leave it? And it was funny to me, because that's interesting from his perspective, that those things are important to him as a gamer. But from my point of view, what was weird was I don't look at a video game as what's the very last scene like. Of course, the ending of a video game is important for me. I want to have a nice conclusion that makes it feel warm and fuzzy. But for me, the game is the journey. Force Unleashed being a good game or bad game isn't the last scene. It's how fun is it to use my force powers along the way. And for me also, in most video games, once you're past chapter 1 of a video game, there's very little need to go back to chapter 1. So it was interesting to hear an MMO player say, well, if I can't go back to the place I started, that seems very restricting. And if the end game isn't this super huge utopia of stuff, then why is the journey worth it? And so it was interesting to me to hear that point of view, because that's not how I look at video games at all.
Well, that's because, and I think not rightly or wrongly, you come at it from the video game connoisseur side. You're like, I want to experience war just like I would a 60-hour game of Fallout 3.
Right.
And what Sid was saying is an interesting distinction, which is very WoW-centric.
Yeah.
Because there seems to be a game within a game with WoW. There's what I'm playing now, which is what you're doing, Russ, which is I'm just exploring the world, I'm experiencing it, I'm going through things, I'm talking to NPCs, and that's fun for me. But then there's the quotation end game, you know. Right. And that seems to be the be-all to WoW players.
Right.
I don't know why. It just seems to be.
So
to some players.
Right, and we'll come back to that end game thing in a little while. Now, one other thing before we get into, I know we're taking a while here, but one other thing I wanted to put on the table before we go on is, as listeners of the show will know, of course, Raef and I, and Craig as well, are huge miniature gamers, and of course we have been involved with the Games Workshop hobby for a long, long time. Now, even though Raef and I occasionally will poke fun at GW and really insist that we're more privateer fans, we've also said on the show that we are huge fans of the Games Workshop world and fluff, you know, their background material. And in my mind, there's nothing cooler than the Games Workshop Orc. No one's ever matched it. The IP is just amazing. And I am going to be unable to divorce myself from the fact that war is based on the Games Workshop IP. What I mean by that is, when we reviewed Battlestar Galactica, I couldn't review that game and say I liked it, even if it was themed on farming. You know, you could take the same mechanics that Battlestar Galactica are and change the theme, and that game wouldn't be as good to me, because part of that game that makes it so much fun is in my mind, now not every game is like this, but in my mind, it was seeing the game capture the essence of the theme. And I think, and I'll get into this more detail in a little bit, this game really tries to capture the essence of the Games Workshop universe, and that's something that, when I talk about my feelings about this game, it's going to be hard for me to divorce myself from the fact that I am a Games Workshop world fan, and that's going to influence my opinion of this game.
I hear what you're saying.
So I want to just put that up front, too, because I'm going to have a hard time getting away from that.
What's really great, I think, about War finally coming out is any WoW player worth their honest opinion knows that the grandfather of all this fantasy IP is GW, and that there's so many references to WoW. And yes, you could trace back, I'm sure, GW's fantasy to Tolkien, but who couldn't?
Right.
You know, so it's kind of great that the granddaddy of the fantasy lore that people have been playing in WoW for years is now finally has its own MMO. And that's pretty exciting.
It is pretty exciting. So let's get into this thing here. Now, first we hinted that Raef couldn't play the game, so let's find out why. Well, the reason is, let's go over the tech specs really quick. I don't want to bore anybody with this, but
actually, Russ, let me pause you. Take your time with this, because there's nothing more frustrating than spending $60 on a game to then put it in, and your computer can't run it.
So I'll quickly go down.
So don't rush through it.
All right, I'll go down the minimum requirements, and then I'll talk about what that's comparable to. The game does have higher requirements than WoW does to run. However, it is not, for those of you video game fans out there, this is not Crysis, okay, which is considered the most crucial, hardest game to get a computer to work on. It's not that heavy lifting of a game in terms of PC specs. However, it does have some minimum requirements. If you don't have it, simply won't work. 2.5 gigahertz Pentium 4, which nowadays is not that big a deal, but that's in there. 1 gigabyte of RAM, and if you're running Windows Vista, you need 2 gigabytes of RAM. But I'm here to tell you right now, if you're running Windows Vista with under 2 gigabytes of RAM, you've already got problems. So if you got Vista, you should be on 2 gig of RAM. 128 megabyte video card. Now, this is most, and they list all the video cards they support, and it's most ATI and NVIDIA video cards, which are the two big daddies of the industry. 128 megabyte video cards are a dime a dozen nowadays, actually, and not quite that cheap. But, for example, you can't really buy a 128 megabyte video card anymore. If you went to the store, to Best Buy right now, the cheapest card you'd see would be about $50, and it'd be a 512 megabyte video card. Okay, so $50 to $75 is going to get you a video card that is already 4 times essentially better than the minimum requirements for the game. So we're not talking state of the art here. However, if you're unfortunately in Raef's boat, and even if you have a relatively recently purchased laptops that aren't defined as gaming laptops generally don't have high memory video cards.
That's right.
And so that's where it'll burn you, because the game just looks for 128 meg on your video card. If it doesn't have it, it doesn't even bother to try to run. So
exactly,
you can't fake it out.
Yep, as a distinction to that, Sid bought the very same laptop I bought, but being smart, he spec'd it out with a gamer's queue in mind, and he hasn't tried it, but he should be able to run War no problem.
Yes, I'm sure he
could. It's just that because I have a laptop, and I'm not using a true video card, I'm using an Intel video chipset War says no thank you
So
to
if
that.
you've got a 2.5 gigahertz PC and you've got a couple gig, a gig or two of RAM in there, your worst case scenario is you got to go pop out and buy a $50 video card to play this thing.
Now let me kind of boil this down. And let's say there's a wife or a girlfriend who happens to be listening to Wives Attack and is listening to this, and she wants to go out and buy her love of her life PC so he can play. Does this stuff requirements, Russ? Could you go to Best Buy, Staples, Circuit City, and buy the CPU that's $499?
Well, I looked that up for you there, Rafe. If you wanted to, I wouldn't recommend running on this machine, quite frankly, because it's the dirt cheapest machine in the world, and I would never really recommend an E-machine to anybody. But if you already, just to give you an idea, if you go to Best Buy today, you can buy an E-machine for about $400, okay, or an Acer, which are basically the two bargain bin classes of computer boxes you can find on the store shelves. Those guys are about $400, and that PC is going to have the RAM you need and the processors you need. Depending on the model you choose, you may have to also throw in a $50 video card. So for under $500, you can get a PC that is above the minimum requirements. It won't run it like flawlessly with 1,000 players on the screen at once, but it'll run it well enough to enjoy. Okay.
I guess that's not what I meant. I think this is for my listeners out there, Russ. I think you forget how easy this is to people that are in the tech business,
right?
And how. I mean, I'm not trying to brag, but I've had how many years of schooling? I mean, I have a doctoral degree, for crying out loud. And my head spins because I go to Best Buy and I'm like, I want memory. And they start to say, well, do you want DDR2? And do you want the memory to have its own memory? And what about the RAM? And I'm like, well, I'm confused.
Yeah, if you just go in and say you want a PC with 2 gig of RAM and a 128 megabyte video card, or 2 gig of RAM and 120 meg video card.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay, because you can't buy a PC today with a processor that's not powerful to run this. They don't sell them.
That's
anymore.
What I'm asking. Okay.
So and those requirements are up the hard. So you should be under $600. Now I'm not saying you should run out and buy a PC to play this game.
I know, but I'm just saying if people were, they could just go to any box store and buy whatever's kind of new-ish, and it'll run it.
Let's put it this way: if you've got a PC that's a PC now, not a laptop, if you've got a desktop that is less than 3 years old, it'll probably run this thing, with the exception of the video card. Maybe even that's okay, because my desktop's that old and it can run it. And so you might be looking at a $50 purchase for a video card, maybe.
Or a memory upgrade.
Right.
Okay.
So, and one other technical thing before we get into how this game plays is the launch of the game. Because the big thing, a lot of people judge these things by how well the game launches. And I thought it was interesting how Mythic, the company the game is published by Electronic Arts, EA, of course, but Mythic, the guys who did Dark Age of Camelot, as well as some other great games, they are the developer. And they decided to roll this game out over an interesting period of time. The launch day was September 18th. The first thing they did was 2 weeks prior to that, they had the closed beta going on for a long time. They started the open beta 2 weeks prior. Okay, you had to pre-purchase the game, you get in the open beta. So already the servers get a little load on them, right? So 2 weeks prior, you get a bunch of people on there. Then 4 days prior, if you pre-purchase the collector's edition, you could get on for real in the real final build of the game, but 4 days before it launched. So then there's another increase of usership. And then 2 days prior, if you pre-purchase the regular edition, you can get on. So then another flood of people. And then launch day, of course, comes, and everybody can get on. And so what was interesting about that was it wasn't big one day, boom, everybody jumped on at once. They had this sort of gradual step-up thing. And it was probably, I think it's arguable, it was the smoothest MMO launch in history. There was some servers got a lot of people on them, and you had to wait in line to get in them. But if you insisted on being in that server, there was plenty of servers. No servers crashed or went down. It worked really, really smoothly, and it was very nice. So in terms of, I don't know how you get a smoother launch in an MMO when you consider all the moving parts involved in launching one of these games. It was pretty impressive. So Mythic and EA are clearly spending a lot of money, a lot of time trying to make this thing as smooth and enjoyable and successful as possible. They're not just. And this is going to be a theme throughout this review. This game is not just, let's just take the GW IP, slap it on some kind of product, and get it out there. This is not that game at all. There's a lot of effort going on to try to literally make this, I don't know if they're trying to make it a WoW killer, but they're trying to make it a very, very successful MMO. Probably, I think their goal is probably to be the second most successful MMO in the world, because I don't think anybody seriously believes you can knock WoW off its throne. But, so we'll see what happens. Now, earlier, Rafe and I alluded to the theme of the game, and I just talked about it a little bit here. So let's get into how the theme works. Now, when I first started thinking about this, and I heard about the idea of a fantasy-based MMO in the GW universe, I was skeptical because I was thinking, well, Warhammer Fantasy is not D&D. It's not one guy walking around becoming a superhero. Warhammer Fantasy has huge blocks of troops colliding on the battlefield with hundreds of guys literally fighting it out, and it's a giant battle. That's not Games Workshop. That what WoW is, the traditional MMO of one guy becoming a superhero in a small Tolkien-esque party of 6 guys walking around to save the universe. That's not war, and that's not Warhammer Fantasy. And so how I was really worried about that. And what they've done is it's pretty brilliant. The theme that you're always at war is interesting, even from the name of the game, which is Warhammer Online Age of Reckoning, which gives you the acronym WAR for war. And their tagline is, war is everywhere. So at all times, there's supposed to be a fight going on. And that theme idea that you're constantly at war with the other races, that the orcs are always fighting the dwarves, and that the humans are always fighting chaos, and that elves are always fighting dark elves, and that they all work together at times to fight each other, is so universally carried out that you don't feel like you're one guy saving the day. You feel like you're one person contributing to this overall battle, which is really interesting. And it was really and this attention to detail all the way through the game that really brings it along. The combat gets to that scale when you go to these areas of the game. There's not just 1 or 2 dwarves standing there. There's like 10 or 15 dwarves, even NPCs fighting you, and you'll see 4 or 5 orcs in the front of the line standing there, big knobs fighting the dwarves, and behind them are goblins and squigs flying in, and it looks like later in the game, guild members can have back banners with their guild on there, so you'll see a guy with a back banner in the middle of a pack of orcs, and it just, when the fights start happening, it doesn't look very dissimilar from 2 blocks of guys smacked into each other and a bunch of little guys supporting characters running around trying to save the day with the occasional flyer flying overhead. So it does actually translate that GW feeling of a war going on, and it's translated throughout the game.
Which is a good thing that they did make the requirements of the computer what they need, so that wouldn't bog down, because that'd be very disappointing.
And I think that's part of it. I think what's happening is they couldn't. Not only are the graphics a little better than WoW in terms of just number of pixels on the screen, all that technical stuff,
right.
But you're right, Rafe. They have to
a different style
for that war level feeling. They wanted to have more models on the screen at once, if you will. So in order to do that, of course, you're going to have to up the ante too. So you're right about that.
Yeah.
Other thing interesting is that the characters, what they did is one thing that I think is a valid complaint about war is that the amount of customization of your character is much more limited than it is in WoW or other MMOs I've been involved with. And let me explain that. For example, if I play a witch hunter, or if I play a squig herder, or if I play an orc knob, the equipment I never get like a pile of equipment that says you can now wield a dwarf dwarf hammerer's hammer. You never get that option.
Right.
When you find stuff and when you buy stuff, it's always stuff for your specific class. It's not even generic orc stuff. It's orc, squig herder gear, or it's a witch hunter's blade, or it's a witch hunter's pistol, or it's a witch hunter's cloak. And they get better and better. So when you start out as a witch hunter in the very beginning of the game, you're not looking very witch hunter-y, and you do have a nice little shirt on, and you have the pants, and you have a pistol and a sword, and it's not a very great sword, not very ornate, and the gun's very simple. As you level up, though, you'll get the nice big long coat, and you'll get the funny-looking pointy pilgrim hat, and eventually you'll get all kitted out with dangly skulls all over yourself. And so when you see a level 1 witch hunter, you can tell he's not a level 10 witch hunter because he doesn't have much gear on him, but you'll never confuse a human witch hunter with a human fire mage or a human war priest. When you see a war priest, whether he's level 1 or level 30, you will instantly know that's a war priest. And when you see a black orc, you will instantly know he's a black orc. There will never be any confusion. Or you see a dwarf, you'll know the kind of dwarf he is. And that turns out to be important. It's obviously a very clear design decision. Yes, you lose some player customization, but on the battlefield, you know what's going on. And that's really important because when you're fighting, you have to understand your opponents. And the game is really built around, I'll get to them more in this minute, what they call realm versus realm combat. It's part of the war theme. And so because the orcs are always fighting the dwarves in destruction, which is the alliance of chaos, orcs, and dark elves, against order, which is the alliance of high elves, humans, and dwarves, they have to be able to, as a player, you have to be able to see what you're up against. You have to be able to tell that there's the rune priest, there's the iron breaker. You have to be able to tell there's the fire mage, and there's the witch hunter, because the witch hunter is going to be trying to get behind you and backstab you, whereas the fire mage is going to be doing range support. So you got to be able to see that stuff, and that's what it does for you there. But it does limit your customization.
Right.
Now, in terms of There is a lot of customization, kind of interesting though, and the theming comes through on this too. You can, I thought it was kind of funny. You can dye all your equipment, which a lot of MMOs allow you to do. And what was kind of funny about this, and here's again a good example of attention to detail, the dye colors are all named after the Games Workshop paints. So when you hover over yellow, it's not yellow, it's Sunburst Yellow, or Chaos Black, or Lich Purple, which is kind of funny. Even to the point where when you're choosing your hairstyle for some of the models, you'll notice, like the Dark Elf players will notice they're the hairstyles of models. Hardcore GW fans will recognize a lot of this stuff. And again, does it really matter? No, but you can tell that the designers of the game and Games Workshop were involved heavily with this, trying to get the look right, trying to make sure that people who are familiar with our IP really expect and see and feel like they're in the Games Workshop universe.
Now, didn't you, I don't know if this goes in theme, but didn't you say, too, one of the big differences which you enjoy is that there's evil?
Well, yes. One of the things, the biggest difference between WoW and I would say War is I would argue that WoW, is PG or E for everyone, E10 plus maybe, whereas
maybe PG-13.
Yeah, whereas War is almost M for mature. Maybe not quite. I don't think it's quite rated M for mature because it's actually not blood. But as people who are not familiar with Games Workshop are going to find out, and I've actually seen some people actually say this when they're reviewing the game online. They're saying, there's real evil in this game. I mean, the orcs will eat your babies, and chaos will just kill you, and dark elves are like just totally evil. So in WoW, when you play an orc in WoW, the orcs in WoW aren't really evil. They're just misunderstood, and they are once upon a time controlled by demons, but they're all better now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas in GW, all the races are true to their thing. Oh, and one more little note about being true to their thing and customization. A couple people online have picked on the fact that all the race choices don't have true gender picking. Like, you can't be a girl orc. Now, all Games Workshop fans know why you can't be a girl orc, because orcs are mushrooms. You're not even really a boy orc. You're actually just a fungus. Also, when you're a witch elf, you have to be a girl witch elf. You can't be a boy witch elf. And all Dark Elf fans will be happy to write a dissertation on why that's the case.
So there's no warlock elves, in other words.
Well, they did bend there's no warlock elves like a witch elf. There is a male witch elf caster, which is an interesting story. You have to go to their website and read about it, but they had to go to GW for IP permission for this because they wanted to have some kind of male casting class, and they had to bend the Dark Elf fluff a little bit on that, but it's not a witch elf. It's a different thing.
Okay.
But that's kind of interesting. But yeah, but you can't, to be a witch elf, you have to be a female. So there are some races, there's some classes where you can't switch genders, and I think people thought it was kind of sexist, but it's actually just staying true to the GW fluff.
So if you're one of those people that's not coming from a GW background, and you were always bothered by the sort of cartoony, non-circular graphical feel of WoW, which WoW does on purpose. They don't have circles because it keeps the graphics down, and I think that's part of WoW's marketing strategy was to keep it
That's
to run
part of its charm too. It's definitely a look,
I like it. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't offend me. But if you're one of those people that's like, I just can't get behind playing a cartoony orc that's really not that evil, then here's a good distinction.
Well, that's a good point too, because like in WoW, right? There's a lot of poking fun jokes. Like you mentioned, there's a Paris Hilton purse joke somewhere.
Yes.
Now they're coming out.
I just solved a quest that was based on Indiana Jones.
Right, and they're coming out now with steampunk motorcycles and the Wrath of the Lich King, right? And some things that are sort of like, just kind of fun silliness. In War, the only humor is the dark humor that's present in the Games Workshop world. That is, if you want to see jokes, play an orc, but they're orc jokes. They're the same orc jokes you see in the Games Workshop world. Like there's one little quest, if I could go on the side real quick. You're walking down the street and there's an orc on a boar arguing with a goblin on a wolf. And one of them is explaining that boars are cooler than wolves, the other one's explaining that wolves are cooler than boars. And to solve this little quest, you have to pick a side and go to the pen, kill the wolves, and feed them to the boars, or vice versa, to prove which is the better one. So it's like that kind of
fun.
Dark humor, though. It's not, it's not like, the cutesy kind of pop culture references that WoW has started doing.
Right.
It's just a different thing.
Right. Different thing.
But it's definitely darker. And speaking of theme, also, what I also like about the game is, and this theme is carried through, there's a definite story being told in the game. Okay, most MMOs. The grand idea of the MMO is you go into this world that's been created for you and you make your own story. Well, that's true. You're going to be a hero in part of the war, but there's a clear story being told here in the game. So much so that each section of the game is called a chapter, and you move from chapter 1 to chapter 2, chapter 3, and there's literally a different story for every race. So if you play the orc character all the way through, you're going to see the orc story, and then if you want to see a new story, you go play the elf character and play that all the way through. So there's actually, because there are, the 6 races, there's 6 whole grand stories to see, and that's before they even think about expansions, which they're going to crank out. So that part of it's interesting, too, for me as a player, because as a video game guy who's not really a huge MMO junkie, I really get into games for their story. And Raef's heard me complain before that I like role-playing games like Knights of the Old Republic and Oblivion because there's an actual story going on in the background that I'm a part of, whereas the open sandbox nature of the MMO, while really, really intriguing, eventually, because there's no story hooking me, I don't, just the idea of getting a new cloak doesn't always pull me forward, whereas the idea of what's next around the corner, what's that next bit of the story I don't know about yet, does tend to pull me in more. So that's one of the things I kind of enjoy about the game.
Which was also one of the pulls for those Latro players. They liked that because they were living out the same thing: chapters, stories. You're living out Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, and you're seeing maybe a new story in the corner of the Tolkien world, right?
Right, exactly.
Now, another part of the theme that's really interesting, and again, the part that's going to bring back, I think, a lot of replay value to people who even aren't huge MMO junkies, is the theming of the lands are awesome. When you start out as an orc, the orcs have captured this dwarven mountain fortress, right? And they're in there, but it's all been orcified. So there's like orc stuff everywhere. And the land is just totally dirt. It's just gunky. There's orcapults all over the place. It's just a mess. If you play Chaos, the land you start in, there's like little Chaos eyes in the trees and in the ground. The land's all tainted. If you play High Elves, the buildings are beautiful and the trees are beautiful. So just the idea of switching characters and checking out the starting areas, or getting to the places where the flight zones are and flying to other realms and checking them out, just exploring and seeing the high elf land come to life, seeing the arcs of the dark elves sitting there afloat in the sea, that kind of stuff is just really flavorful. And again, as a GW fan, it just brings. But even if you weren't a GW fan, even if this whole stuff was new, imagine never having heard of Games Workshop, but knowing in the back of your head how rich the universe is, and discovering all this for the first time, and realizing how greatly different, the land of the dark elves is going to look.
This is where things are going to get interesting, I guess. This is where we'll get some opposing views. See, I find it interesting. It must just be a taste thing, because I really enjoy flying around or riding around, and I'm in a real deserty area of WoW, and it's all bleak and deserty, and there's bones and skeletons and big skull heads, and then you go to Stranglethorn Vale, and it's all lush jungle and gorillas, and so to me, I really like that. And when I had seen I enjoy that, and I think it's really rich. And then I see on War, looking at it at Gen Con, and I was like, it's a castle, and it's a dwarf, and it's a brick road. I mean, I'm not saying the graphics are shoddy, but it wasn't as beautiful, or it didn't have that impression that you had of going, oh my gosh, look at this orc village, it's so wonderful. Just interesting. It must be different tastes.
Well, it's cool for me because I'm so steeped in the GW lore and I used to play Man of War, for example, and one of the very early missions of the orc side is you attack this dwarven fortress, and you get inside, and there's a dwarven ironclad afloat that you get to board to walk on. I mean, it's like, so for me, and it looks perfect. It looks like it's right out of Man of War, just sitting there on the screen. So like that kind of situation for me just is really cool because I'm a GW fanboy. Now,
right.
Well, Craig would argue I'm not, but I mean, in terms of GW fluff, I'm a total fanboy, and so that was really interesting to see. So I think that's what appeals to me. Then there's certainly different lands and different styles of land. There's plenty of all kinds of stuff in the middle of battlefields and skulls and lush jungles and all that stuff. But what I'm saying is that the home areas are so like their race that it's really interesting to see how the flavor of the race translates into it. But at the same time, even when you're in this beautiful village, like I started in the orcs and it's all dusty and fighty, but when I started as a human, I started in this beautiful little Tudor village. I'm like, oh wow, it's so nice and clean here. And all of a sudden, an explosion rocks the building to the left of me. And as soon as I leave the main center of town, there's buildings on fire and there's bodies with women crying over the dead. And you're trying to, in your first missions, to rescue people from Chaos Warriors. So immediately you're reminded that, well, this was an idyllic village at one time, but we're still at war. And even the elves, you walk out of the little elf area and you're still at war. The dark elves are already tainting the land and causing trouble and taking slaves. And so there's never really, you're right in one way, Raef, there's no pretty place. It's all at war. It's all a mess. But that's Games Workshop. That's their artwork. That's their books, right? It's all dark and really all falling apart and being destroyed. And that comes across in the game very clearly.
Right.
And one more thing to bring forward the story and the theme is the Tomb of Knowledge, which is interesting. which is kind of serves a bunch of parts. It's sort of like your notebook. It's your quest guide. All your quests are in there. They have an achievement system which is similar to Xbox and Lord of the Rings Online, where every time you do anything, it gets written in your book. It counts. It kind of comes up, and all the chapters of the stories you've completed come up in the book too. So you can kind of go in and read the story. When you first kill something for the first time, like you see a dark elf for the first time, you kill it. A page gets entered. Little line drawing of some of the early GW artwork of the dark elves in there, and the explanation of the history of the dark elves are right there. And then your total stats are right next to it of how many dark elves have you killed so far. And when you kill enough dark elves, you can get a title that goes in your name, like Dark Elf Slayer. When you kill even more dark elves, you can actually get tactics and abilities that increase your capabilities against dark elves, things like that. So the Tomb of Knowledge all ties into all these different things, as well as being this sort of reference thing to all your current quests and your story. It's another great way to bring forward the story and introduce people to the Games Workshop world that aren't familiar with it.
And you get a title, right?
You get titles. You get tons of titles. And they start off with really cheesy titles, like, when you get killed by anything, you get a title, and it's something silly, like, when I was playing my goblin, first thing that happened, I got killed by a witch hunter. My title became The Judged because I was killed by a witch hunter. And you work your way up from that, though, and eventually you get really cool ones, like you kill enough skeletons, you get Skeleton Hunter and things like that.
Now, I seem to remember not too many episodes ago, maybe around episode 5. You and Craig were sure giving me a hard time about my questing goal to have a cool title over my head. And you were like, yeah, okay, you like to bake pies, and you were really rubbing it in.
There's a difference between pie baker and Skeleton Hunter.
I don't know.
That's my point. But I've always been a fan of achievements. I'm totally a fan of, that. I love achievements. And so,
yeah.
So that whole thing is still. So before we leave theme, Raef, you have any comments about the? Oh, one more thing about the theme. They translate the theme over even into the strategy guide. I picked up the strategy guide the other day, and
now we're talking about the book.
The book, right? You can buy it. It's by they say you got to make it, and it's really beautiful. It's full color. Each section
it is a beautiful book, actually.
Each section of the strategy guide, I would say it rivals a Privateer Press book, has great artwork in it, but
it doesn't rival a Privateer Press book.
Oh, it's pretty close. But what's interesting about it is the writing for each race, like when you read about how to be an orc boy, it's written in the orc slang language that GW's invented. And if you read about being a war priest, it's written from the point of view of a war priest. An actual war priest is like telling you the story of how to be a war priest. Just that extra level of effort, it just brings the game again to life, brings you into the world. There's all kinds of little jokes about where to stick a knife on a dwarf to do the best killing, all kinds of stuff like that. There's another one that's the 5 best things to do with your high elf slave in the dark elf section. Just really great things that bring that flavor, and again, that little bit of humor, but it's the dark GW humor. It's not that light and airy WoW humor. So on that note,
I'll tell you what books do rival the Privateer Press books. Where Christian Flores, a good friend of mine, of ours, had bought the collector's edition of Warhammer Online.
Yes, yep.
And those books, one was I think a comic, and the other a hardbound though, and the other one was a hardbound graphic or concept art.
Collector's edition is
full
really
color.
Cool.
Oh my! I mean, you just want to have a Starbucks coffee and sit for 2 hours and look at that book. Let me tell you, that is
it's
great,
beautiful.
Great
those are beautiful, and the miniature that comes with that is pretty nice too.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
there's
that.
An orc war boss with a little goblin on his shoulder there. Pretty
Those
cool.
were some nice books. So Russ, just for the last bullet on theme, we've covered most of it. So all I want to say is, if you're a player out there that had once played an MMO, you did your WoW thing, you did your Age of Conan thing, you did your Latro thing, and you were sort of like, meh, I did it, I'm done, and you like the Warhammer universe, you don't feel like playing a cartoony game, you want to play a real graphically nice looking dark game where the mechanic is the faith-based magic that we love in Warhammer, the tabletop game, then I think it's worth checking out. And if you like the concept of sort of being one of a rank of 15 dwarves, from what I hear from Russ, it sounds definitely worth a trial at least.
Oh, it's definitely worth a look, and I think we'll get to more about how we feel about whether you should get or not in a little while. But I think there's definitely a feeling of there's definitely a style difference, despite the fact, and I thought it was interesting because despite the fact that, as you alluded to earlier, WoW was inspired by Games Workshop. There's no doubt about that. Blizzard has never made a secret of that. StarCraft was inspired by 40K. Warcraft and Orcs and Humans is inspired by Games Workshop stuff. They're all players of the games. Still, there's definitely a little more tongue-in-cheek and sort of craziness going on in WoW, and the war has got that darker feel. But not only that, as we get into how things work, that feeling of the constant war, that it's not all about you, it's about the collective you, it's about your people doing the job, not just you doing the job, is interesting change, I think, from the traditional MMO point of view. So let's talk a little about classes real quick here. I'm not going to try to get into every single class, but I just wanted to mention that there are 20 different classes you can choose from, which is quite a bit. How many classes are in WoW?
Oh, gosh, you had to put me on the spot. Classes. Okay, Mage, Warlock, Shaman, Druid, Hunter, Rogue, Priest, Paladin.
Yeah.
I think I might be leaving one out. The Death Knight's coming out soon, but let's not talk about that. I might be leaving one out. That's 8.
Yeah.
However, you then add races to those, which give you different racial abilities, kind of like in D&D.
So what's different is so the 20 classes in War sounds like it's double of WoW, but it really isn't because.
No, because I'm going to. Oh, we're going to talk about talents.
Well, no, it's because.
Let me say one more thing, and then I'll have my full blurb out there.
All right.
There's an argument in WoW that you have even more than that because each, like I'm a priest, I have 3 talent trees for which I can pick from.
Yeah.
And depending on which talent or blend of talents makes a different character.
Yeah, they have that too.
You with me on that?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
So so that part I think we can throw out. Well, we can leave it in there, but War has that too. They have these mastery levels, and so as you build your skills, you're going to then choose your masteries. And so the Witch Hunter I finally develop may be different than the Witch Hunter you finally develop. In other words, I might be better at close combat, you might be better than shooting, someone else might be better.
Same concept as talents. Yep.
Exactly right. So there's 20 different classes, but to be fair to comparing it to other games, is each race only has 3 to 4 classes. So every race can't be every class, not even close. So, but even though there might be a tank for dwarves and a tank for orcs, okay, but they're different classes because the orc tank is a black orc and the dwarf tank is an ironbreaker. They do play differently, and their abilities are different. So, which is kind of interesting. So they are truly different classes, but again, the dwarves can never have the abilities of a dwarf tank will never have the exact abilities of an orc tank, which is interesting. So they'll always be a little different, which again gives you that feeling of when you see an orc about to wog, you know there's nothing like it on your side, and vice versa. The ironbreaker is going to bring something else to that, so that's interesting. And they all play pretty unique. So I've already tried. Like I tried here's a good example. There are 2 pet classes in War. Okay.
Yeah.
The High Elves have one. The White Lions, who actually have a pet lion, and the Orcs have one. The Squig Herder, who of course has a pet squig. And what's interesting about that is the Squig Herder, though, his job is to stay back. He's a range guy who then sends his squig in to do the fighting and slow you down while he shoots you with his arrows. Meanwhile, the White Lion, he's very different. He goes in close combat, and his lion also helps in close combat, so he's not a ranged herder. So that's a good example of 2 pet classes, not the same. And a lot of the other classes work similarly in that respect. They're sort of the same, but even though they're both ranged DPSs or roguelike classes, how they work and integrate with the other people in their party is different, or in their race is different. So there's a lot of variety in there to experience, and I think you'll find that when you try the Orc Shaman, it's going to be very, very different from the Human Fire Mage, for example. Now, one thing that's really interesting about, and one more thing about that is that because not all the races have the same type, when you get into RVR, when you start fighting your realm versus their realm, bringing the other races of your side together, working together, is really a big deal. That really helps bring you together and lets you fight better. So it really gets important later in the game to try to get that mix of your side together, and in a particular RVR area, which we'll get to in a little while, the side that has more variety with them is going to be in a better position than the side that's pure orcs or pure high elves.
That's the part I'm waiting to chime in on. I want to chime in on combat and the questing.
All right, so let's talk a little about basic combat, and then we'll talk about some of the questing and stuff. Now, one thing that's been made kind of critical of the game is, and I've heard about online, and I don't get this at all, but again, I'm not a hardcore MMOer, is that combat is slow in War.
What do they mean by that?
I don't know. I gotta think. I think they only mean that maybe it takes longer to kill somebody, because in terms of speed, some of my attacks are pretty much as fast as I can push the button, and my guys' animations are fast, and I'm moving around a lot. But maybe they mean like in WoW, when you go to fight somebody, you can cack your opponent in maybe under 30 seconds if you know what you're doing. Whereas in War, even if against a rookie, it's going to take you a little bit of smashing to get through the guy.
Maybe they mean because I watched Sid play PvP with his level 70,
Yeah.
and Russ, it doesn't even look fun. All it looks
Yeah.
like to me is a bunch of spinning the camera around
Yeah.
and clicking things randomly. So,
Yeah, see,
which actually to me doesn't sound very appealing at
Yeah,
all.
it's not like that at all. In war, you're actually, first of all, you fight your realm versus realm and player versus player is happening from very early on in the game. We'll get to more of that in a minute. So but you're right. I mean, it's because I think because you can't kill somebody instantly. One of the big differences, for example, and I'll go through the differences here, is war has what we call in the game biz collision detection. Now, you're saying to yourself, well, WoW has collision detection. I can't walk through a wall in WoW. No, you can't. But you also, in WoW, you can walk through other players, right, Raef? You can just walk through
Correct.
anybody. You can walk. Can you walk through monsters even?
Yes.
Yes. So there's no physical. When a dragon's in front of you, you can walk right through them. There's no physical stopping that.
Correct.
In war, you can't move through a model, just like in Games Workshop, right? So you can't. If I walk into a knob, if 3 knobs are standing on a bridge, and behind the bridge is the objective, I cannot walk through those 3 knobs and saunter over to the objective running at full speed. I have to somehow figure out a way as a weedy little witch hunter to literally push my way past 3 giant knobs, which is not easy. Now, there are a little bit of tricks with hopping and things. You might be able to pull something off, but basically the idea is you can't get through somebody easily. And what's also interesting is, and I don't know if this is in war or not either, but a lot of abilities are directionally boosted. In other words, as a witch hunter, because I'm sort of a rogue and sneaky class a little bit, I have attacks that will ignore your armor if I hit you from behind. If I hit you from the side, I might do more damage, things like that. So not fighting you head on, which is not the witch hunter's job. His job is to judge you from the rear, apparently. I can do that. So, but it would be kind of cheesy if I could just walk through you, turn around, and stab you in the back. So instead I have to work my way around you. So what ends up happening in realm versus realm, or in player versus player combat, is you get your frontline tanks all kind of going shoulder to shoulder against your own frontline tanks, and the sneaky guys like me are trying to get around on the flanks, sneak past them, and get behind them and start stabbing them in the back. Meanwhile, the mages, and what ends up happening is it looks very much like a Warhammer game. All of a sudden, you got your front lines slamming together, your little solos and everybody trying to get around from the sides. And it actually looks like a real battle, which is pretty interesting.
I think to we WoW players out there, what they would like, especially tanks, is this concept that you can take 3 characters, 3 tunes, stick them on a bridge, and that becomes a tactic. That's fun. Because, again, I've played a couple Battlegrounds. It's really just a bunch of running, jumping, running through things. The Horde tend to play better. They coordinate a little better. But that's neat where, your tank, you can't just run through your tank in war. Your tank's going to stop you and even and say you can't go through me, and even has, I understand, abilities that says you can't go through me. That's a neat convention.
And you can physically block and protect your mage physically. You can go you can stay in there toe to toe with your friend and prevent the guy from walking through you, or keep staying in front of him as he tries to get by you and things like that. So there's a lot more. So combat may be slower, quote unquote, in that it takes you longer to kill somebody, but also movement's more important. And this may be something that some MMO players don't like. But for me, as a player who really enjoyed games like Counter-Strike and Halo Online and a lot of the other match games online, because there's more movement and it's a more dynamic game, and I can try to get around you and you try to get around me, I find that more interesting. And so it's more dynamic than your typical MMO where you just kind of stand there and just try to get your best combination of attacks off on somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Different style of fighting.
Right. And one other thing about combat is there's 2 other things that I think combo attacks exist in other MMOs too, but in war how they work is as a witch hunter, for example, I can get off accusations on people with certain attacks, and those build up, and as I get enough accusations, then I can use a different attack that does more damage. There are other, like the fire mage, as he does certain kinds of attacks, he builds up firepower, which then allows him to cast a spell that costs no action points because it just uses fire energy for big damage. One other mechanic that's really interesting, and again brings home the Games Workshop feel, is morale. There's a morale meter on the screen, and as you and people working with you do more damage to the enemy, it doesn't matter if it's NPCs or PCs, right? But you're fighting. If you're doing more damage to them than they're doing to you, your morale starts going up. When they start doing more to you than your morale starts going down, right? So as your morale goes up, you'll eventually at higher levels get morale abilities. I have one now that deals 500 points of damage for free if my morale gets to a certain level. So all of a sudden, as my morale keeps going up, that attack just goes off. I can click it goes off, does a certain amount of point of damage, and it doesn't cost me anything to do that attack, and then it'll recycle in like 10 seconds and be able to go again. So basically, what that effectively does from a high level game point of view is, if our side's morale stays up, we're literally better fighters. We're getting these free attacks going off. If you can drop our morale down, those are going to fall back. And you can only imagine the kind of cool WoG-like mechanics that you could put into the orcs with things like that. And, oh, yeah, they do. As the orcs fight, the orc shaman can build the WoG power and do all kinds of neat stuff with that, too.
That's cool.
So that's a really interesting mechanic, too. So I don't think any of that, again, reinvents the wheel. But the way it's all used together here, again, really reminds you that this is Warhammer Fantasy.
And that's a great distinction right there, which is I don't think Warhammer Online, you hear in the web, the WoW killer. I don't think they're thinking that. I think because a bunch of us were saying, oh man, why did they have to go Warhammer Fantasy? Why didn't they go Warhammer Science Fiction? We all would blow our brains out over that one, so to speak, excitement wise. Even the WoW players, we all want that. So what they had to do, and it sounds like they did, was they're in the fantasy genre, albeit the grandfather, and they went a little different. And that's the distinction right there,
Right. Exactly. I don't think it doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it refines it, and
but it should,
and it presents an amazing theme. I think those are two things. And the other thing it does is, and it's a good segue, Rafe, is it brings in realm versus realm combat. And
see, I pay attention to your bullet points.
You're doing a very good job. So what you'll hear a lot, because war is on the scene now, and if you're an old school MMO player, you're gonna know about P versus E and P
PDE
versus P. That's what people talk about. P versus E is player versus environment, right? Which is basically you doing quests and following things that essentially are you're fighting NPCs, right? You're fighting monsters. You're fighting, and you might be working with your friends, but you're fighting monsters. So it's kind of like playing a co-op, single player role playing game with friends, basically, right? And then there's player versus player, where theoretically you're actually fighting other people. Now, P versus P gets a bad name because a lot of people do player killing and they come running in and do things. But basically,
that's where you hear ganking.
Right, ganking, which means just killing a little player just because you can, just kind of being a jerk about it. Some games don't even allow player versus player. There's been MMOs in the past that just simply don't allow it. Some people swear by it. Some people only do one or the other. There's two other terms that War has introduced to the genre. One is PQ, which is public quests, and the other one is RVR. Actually, War didn't introduce RVR. Dark Age of Camelot introduced RVR, which stands for Realm versus Realm, which is essentially organized player versus player. It basically says, we know you want to fight each other, but stop fighting yourselves, all you orcs. Go fight the dwarves, and kind of push you in the right direction. And what that effectively does is it does for this game what hopping onto Halo and suddenly being in a blue suit of armor next to a bunch of blue suited guys does. I mean, sure, there are team killers and stuff in those games too, but generally the average Joe looks around and goes, oh, I'm blue, you're blue, let's go kill the red guys. And there's no confusion, and you go do your job. And you effectively work together. Even if you don't know that the guy next to you, you're still playing with the player, doing that thing. Well, what Realm versus Realm does is it sort of focuses you into, I'm an orc, you're an orc, let's go kill some stunties. And that's basically how it works. So let's talk a little about these three different areas in War and how they do it. First, let's talk about the classic player versus environment. There's quests in this game, which in WoW and other games there's the guy's little exclamation point above your head. You go collect your quests. In War, the icons are different, but it's exactly the same thing.
What are the icons?
They're little circles, and they're different colors. So there's a circle. If it's a green circle, it's a quest you haven't done yet. You can go pick it up. Mm-hmm. If it's a yellow circle, it's a quest you've completed. Go to that guy and say, I'm done.
That seems kind of lame.
Well, it's easy enough to tell. What I do like about the
should be little skulls or something.
Well, there are skulls above some people. Well, there's pictures in the. It's a circle with a picture in it. So, like, if there's a book and it's a check mark with a book, and then there's like skulls and a blue circle if it's a reward guy. So they have all these circles in different colors. Right. But what's interesting about it is, this is my favorite part about it actually, is that when I do WoW, many quests. Right, it's very hard. There's not really any waypoints or anything to find where you're supposed to go in WoW for quests.
No.
You got to kind of read the quest 12 times, figure out where you're supposed to go. In War, what happens is you get 10 quests and you turn your map, and there's little red circles sort of on your map of the general area where all the quests. And if you hover over them, it tells you all the quests in that area that can be completed. So that you picked up. So if I pick up 10 quests, it'll show me maybe like 3 circles on my map, and if you hover over, it'll say these 3 quests are here, these 2 quests are here, these 4 quests are over here, and I can go over there, finish them all off, and then when they're done, it puts another circle on the map where I got to go to complete the quest. So there's no more wandering around trying to figure out the quest, and the quests are much more, I find, story driven than I found in WoW. Now, granted, I only played through level 12 in WoW, but even I'm only level 8 now in War, and I've already found, like I was mentioning before, there's a neat little quest scene, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, but it's only level one level 1 goblin thing. You go out, and one of the early quests is, hey, there's some barrels over by the river. Why don't you go see what the problem is there? And you go to the barrels, and you kick them open, and there's dwarves in the barrels. And so you kill the dwarves. They're naked. They're naked dwarves in the barrels. You're killing the dwarves, and you open the barrels. That's weird. Later in the game, you get on this high wall over the same river, and there's this little goblin going there. Hey, see that wounded stunty over there? Go stick him in the barrel. And you stick him in the barrel and kick him off the wall, and he falls into the river below. So later you find out that goblins are stuffing orcs and dwarves in barrels and stick them over the wall. So
that's
little,
pretty funny.
Little funny quests like that are in the game that are a little more, I found to be a little more interesting than a lot of what I found in early WoW, which was go kill 20 boars, go kill 20.
Since we have we're not a show about hate, I won't swear at you or anything that. I'll be nice and say I have an opposing and contrasting view.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, no, but what's funny, what you say about that, I was thinking about why I enjoy WoW and why I might not, even if I had my computer, spend my time in war, is the mods. So you were discussing how you like how the quest, you can find the darn quest, which I think everybody does. And finally a game put it in there. WoW seems to have grown up with this culture of allowing and wanting people to go ahead and script programs, they're called mods, that you can import into the game.
Yep.
So there are 18 gajillion quest helper type of mods where you can have waypoints and you can have quest helper and all these different things.
Yep.
And I think WoW Blizzard does it on purpose now, letting people create these mods. It's almost become remember back in the day when the internet was really new and everybody was doing apps and things like it's almost like that,
Well,
it's become a grassroots thing.
War has an API also, and I'm sure there'll be tons of war mods also.
There will. I was going to ask you if they were going to allow outside.
They are allowing all that. What I think is
cool.
interesting. What I think is interesting though is you have to kind of know yourself to find all that mod crap. Not crap, but to find all the mods and get them together, put them in. And what I like is it's just built into the game.
It's just right
nice.
in there.
Right.
But the other thing I was going to tell you is, the lore of Azeroth is really interesting. It's just that people that you hear about on the internet, they just want to power level, get to 70, play with because their buddies are all 70s, and they miss the story. Where me, on the other hand, you have the same kind of fun quests. Like I said, I just did an Indiana Jones one. It was great.
Yep.
If you take your time to read the quest instead of going, 5 quest quivers, click, 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 and then running off and following your quest helper, there's a story there.
Yeah, maybe I just didn't run into that many at low level, and maybe they're there at higher level in WoW, but I personally didn't see that many at low level. Maybe they're there. Maybe I just didn't happen to bump into them.
No, they're there, but they're the ones that are like go kill and get 10 boar skins. But at the end of the quest chain, it tells you a little story.
Well, yeah, there's a little text
by the end.
Right. Whereas I think that what's interesting about what's also interesting about the PvE thing in War is they use them to push you into other areas. Like one of the quests later is, hey, go get me, and it sounds like a boring quest. Go get me 3 hides from this forest of this creature. I'm like, oh, here we go, a WoW quest. Well, on your way, it just so happens to get there, you have to walk right through a public quest area. So let's talk about public quests. So what the heck's a public quest?
Yeah, now these sound really neat.
Public quest is a whole new concept, and it's one of the true innovations of War. And I think they're brilliant, and I think it's pretty much a general consensus that every MMO from now on, and I guarantee WoW will have them soon, someday too, will now feature these. It is brilliant. And what happens is, they're part of the environment. So this is not an instance. It's not anything else. It's just part of the environment. And one of my public quests was, hey, as a goblin, go over there and get me a barrel. Well, as I walk over there, suddenly it says, you've entered a public quest, and a little icon appears in the corner and says, here's the current mission. So what these public quests are is, and I look over there, and there's a giant walking around. I'm level 2. There's a giant walking by me, and there's orcs fighting dwarves everywhere, and squigs popping all over the place. What happens is, when you go to a public quest, there's 3 stages in every public quest, and it'll tell you the current stage it's in and the goal of the stage. So it'll like say, you got to crack open 15 barrels to finish the stage, or you got to kill 20 squigs, or you got to whatever the goal is. And in this first quest I happened upon as an orc, it was this giant needed to we need to get this giant awake to go take on these dwarves. So we had to these little rogue squigs are bothered, so to kill all the squigs. Then we had to break out a bunch of barrels. And so what happens is any player standing around just jump in on this stuff. So it's like an instant way to sort of form bonds and work together to solve this problem. And every player involved in the public quest gets what's called influence in that area, which is another. I'll get to what those in a bit. But they're these little mini stories, these little 3-part stories. And after you solve the story, so in this giant one, for example, we got the squigs out of the way, we cracked open all the kegs for the giant. The giant got all excited, got up, grabbed this big stone, bashed open the door to the dwarven keep. the Dwarven Warlord comes out with all those Iron Breakers. We have to stop all the Iron Breakers and kill the Overlord. When you do that, everybody gets experience. Everybody gets XP for what they killed. Everybody gets influence, and then we get this prize pool we get to go through and figure out what we won. And based on how well you did in the event, there's random prizes that come out, and the people get loot and stuff.
Now, wait a minute, because people who have played other MMOs are going to say, oh, we have those. Those are instances, or I can group up with people and kill the same monsters. But no, this is different. Say exactly how it's different.
Which part? Oh, you mean the actual public quest?
The public quest. The public quest.
What's different about it is that when you walk into this public quest, it's just sitting there. So like you can see it actually happening. So another example is I was walking along and I see there's a bunch of orcs chopping down trees. And I'm walking along and it suddenly says, help the orcs chop the trees down. As soon as I chopped the trees down, dryads started appearing. And the dryads would start attacking any players around. And all the players in the area started helping. And so what ends up happening is you're encouraged to fight those other guys. So even if I see another player fighting a dryad, right, in WoW, you wouldn't want to help him because if I kill the dryad, I might upset him. But also,
right.
Or I don't get any experience points for it. So it doesn't matter if I kill the dryad because only he gets because you get the first hit on it. But what happens is, if we both kill the dryad, the guy that hits it first, just like any other MMO, gets all the XP. However, unless we're partied up. However, because I help the public quest that's also going on, I get renown for that. So what ends up happening is everybody starts working together to try to solve these little quests. And then the next stage in that little mini story happens. So the next stage, after we kill the dryads...
And you could leave if you want. Let's say it was time to go.
Yeah, you can just walk right out of it. And you get the round for whatever you did, or the influence for whatever you did. If you stay, though, you'll see the next stage of the quest, which might be now bigger. Now we chopped the trees down, and then a treeman walked out. And we had to fight a treeman. So like there's 6. So it's almost like a raid, except it's public. You didn't have to gather, and whoever's there is there, and you just get involved with it.
See, that's what's innovative, is those of us in WoW or other MMOs, everybody knows the annoyance of PUG. And I'm going to drop acronyms here because I know when I first started at the old fart age that I am, these young kids were throwing on these acronyms. I don't know what they meant. PUG stands for Pickup Group. Yep. So if I want to do this really cool dungeon and do what Russ is describing in WoW, I got to stand around, yell out to the universe if I'm not in a guild, get people, get the PUG. They may listen to me. They may not listen to me. Great. It takes about 45 minutes to get into this dungeon. The dungeon's going to take an hour and a half. People are jumping out. People are jumping in. And if you're halfway through a dungeon and your tank leaves, everybody's screwed.
Right.
So there's this problem where you're the tank. You're like, Jesus, it's 11 o'clock. I got to get up early and go to bed. I can't help it that these other two people were slower than molasses. I got to go. And then you feel guilty and all these problems. The brilliance of this is you're walking along. There's a public quest. You join.
Yep.
It sounds like it doesn't matter. It sounds like it scales. You need to go after the first chapter, segment, whatever it's called. You go. Right. I'm sure your buddies are
you
like,
you can walk right into the second segment, too. And the thing that happens at the very end when they award prizes, how well you're going to do in that reward process is going to be how much of it you participated in, how much damage you did, and stuff like that. So that all factors in. But in the end, you can just jump and help out. In fact, it was great. I was fighting, and I was about to die, and someone just, I see a chopper fly over my shoulder and take the guy out in the foot and just kill him. It was awesome and it helped me out. And again,
speaking of that,
they're encouraged to help out.
Speaking of that, Russ, let's say there's 10 fellow players in there.
Yep.
Okay. And do the monsters in the public quest detect that and scale up to that?
No.
And likewise, if 5
what happens is like some
of
the public quests have like to get past the first stage, you got to kill 70 of something. It's a large number, so you suddenly realize I need more help to do this, or it'll take me all day to kill 70 guys.
So they won't swarm you at 70? How do they know there's only one of you in there?
Well, they don't always move. Sometimes they'll stand kind of like a normal. You gotta aggro them, right? So sometimes they'll swarm, sometimes they won't, depending on the public quest.
So you could do theoretically, you could do the public quest by yourself.
Theoretically, but some of them, but they're really interesting. Like there'll be one public quest where the third stage or the second stage is a bunch of, after you kill all the creatures surrounding this village house, all the villagers run out and try to run away, and a bunch of Chaos Marauders try to cut them down. And you have to stop the Chaos Marauders from cutting the villagers down, and only one guy physically can't stop them many Chaos Marauders that quickly. So it's not just kill 20 guys. They're actual themed events with a story going on and everything. So you'll realize quickly, crap. And then that particular scenario I'm describing where the Marauders come out, you finally kill those guys, and you think you got it. A Chaos Giant walks onto the field, and you've got to all work together to kill a Chaos Giant. And again, so if you're one level 6 guy, you're going to be like, okay. so what ends up happening is you go back to town. Hey, who's going to help? But if the server's got a pop on it, there'll always be people fighting these public quests, various times.
So it sounds like it solved the pickup group problem.
Exactly. Well, the other way they solve the pickup group problem real quick is they have public parties. Now, I don't know if other games have this too now built in, but basically, when you create a party, you can open it up and call it public. And then whenever you enter an area, a little icon appears in the corner of your screen that says, there are 4 public parties looking for players in your area. And you hover over, it'll tell you, and you can specify the kind of thing we're looking for. Hey, we're looking for player versus environment. We're looking for public quests. We're looking for RVR. And you can simply bop right in. In fact, I was doing some RVR with my friend Josh the other night, and I'll get into RVR next. That's my next segue. And we started fighting these chaos guys. There's 2 of us in a party, enough to open. And by the end of the night, we had 6 guys in our party, and we were just like laying into chaos with a bunch of high elves. It was awesome. And it was all because we just left the party open and they started joining in. And so before you know it, you have a nice party going on. And again, but that happens because when you get to Realm versus Realm, it behooves you to work together with other players because there's these other benefits you get for doing that also. So there's really 3 rewards, which we'll get to in a minute. So in RVR, there are really 2 things
Realm
going
versus
on.
Realm.
Realm versus Realm, right. There are scenarios, which are, I think, sort of like Battlegrounds. And how they work basically is any time in the game, depending on what chapter you're in for your side and what land you're in, elves or humans, you can click this little icon in the corner that puts you in the scenario queue for that area.
Okay.
And when enough players have queued up, it'll say, hey, would you like to jump into this scenario? You say yes. You sort of teleport into this scenario. It's a fixed field. And this is the part that's kind of like
Battleground.
Battleground, or kind of like a video, more classic video game where there's objectives and capture the flag, and you basically fight the other side. And you're generally paired up with like-minded people of the same level. And depending on the area, there's level limits. So in the in tier 1, there's only 1 through 10. In tier 2, it's 10 through 20 or whatever it is. And you play for these objectives. And those are really fun because you just jump right in. It doesn't matter where you are. And as soon as it's over, and when you die in those, you respawn instantly and keep fighting. You go back to the start point in that little area, and you keep fighting that map. And when you battle those, you'll get your experience or whatever, and you'll be able to go on. If you the other kind of Realm versus Realm is what they call RVR lakes. And these are kind of like the public quests in that they're part of the terrain. So you're walking along, and you get to your war camp. On the edge of your war camp, there's a front line, and you'll see some NPCs saying, there'll be hell guns there and all kinds of stuff in the Empire, and they'll say, beyond there is the chaos is fighting for us. You need to go capture those objectives. And out there, there'll be little objective locations. And you can, as soon as you walk beyond the gates of your area, it'll say you have now been flagged for Realm versus Realm combat. And in that area, it's pretty much, chaos fights, order fights, destruction, basically is how it works out there. So you see a destruction guy, you can fight him. And there's objectives, though. If your side controls all the objectives in that little lake, then a benefit for that entire area, for that entire tier, comes online. Like if order controls all those, everything's 15% cheaper in the stores. Everybody gets 20% more experience, or whatever it is. It depends on the area what happens.
That's cool.
So by controlling those, you're helping your entire land by doing that. And when you capture those objectives, NPCs will pop out and defend it. So like I was working in the High Elf area the other day as my witch hunter, and when we captured it, a High Elf champion on a warhorse comes out, and a bunch of High Elf warriors come out, and it was really fun. It's just really interesting, and again, it's a great way to get the fighting going on, and again, it brings in, you're immediately fighting other players, but you're focused. It's got focus objectives, and people want to try it out. But I guess what are the WoW equivalents of this kind of thing, Raef?
Well, that would be the Battlegrounds.
Yep.
Same kind of thing. You walk up to a Battleground area, staging area, it clicks as you're ready. You can join Battlegrounds as a party. You can join solo, and poof.
Yep.
Same thing. Capture the flag, different types of objectives. WoW also has, which is what part of the end game is, various arena battles where you can battle 2v2. So, Russ, you and you could be a paladin, I could be a rogue, and we're a 2v2 team, and we go in and we battle other 2v2 teams of like skill and
but the Realm versus Realm. But what's interesting about this is later in Realm versus Realm, what happens is what Sid would call the end game is in the middle tiers you get to actually try to capture fortresses with siege equipment. And so you build siege equipment to take the fortress down, like bolt throwers and catapults and orcapults that launch the orcs up there. And when you capture these castles, the guilds can hang their flags on them. They capture the castle. And then eventually you can actually siege the enemy's main city, and that's the end game, where you can actually go and attack Altdorf itself and wipe it out, or go attack the Forbidden City and wipe it out. And so that's where the level it actually goes to in Realm versus Realm, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, there's no Realm versus Realm PvP.
Yeah, so
even in PvP servers,
right?
It's not Realm versus Realm like this is describing.
Right. So this is a little bit beyond that.
It's a uniqueness.
Idea. Now, quickly, we're running out of time, so I'll quick wrap some things up here. First of all, I mentioned some rewards, and they do some interesting things. You don't have to participate in all aspects of the game. You can just say player versus environment. You can just say Realm versus Realm, but what they do to reward you for being well-rounded is you get 3 kinds of sort of experience. First of all, there's direct experience points, which is when you kill something, you get XP. That goes to your level, which they call ranks in this game, but it's your level. Okay. Next is your renown. Renown comes from realm versus realm combat. So every time I walk into these, either I go into a realm versus realm scenario or I go into a realm versus realm lake and I fight for something, what ends up happening is I get this renown. Every time I kill somebody, I get renown in addition to my experience points, and that renown can then be spent on renown rewards. And this is interesting because in the chapter I'm in, there's specific renown rewards, and then also there's specific influence rewards. Now you get influence by doing player quests. So, for example, a public quest. Excuse me. So if I do a public quest, I get influence. If I do realm versus realm, I get renown, and those things come to different rewards. And what ends up happening is there's certain things you can gain in certain chapters. So once you've gained all the things in that chapter, it sort of pushes you on to the next chapter and gets you keep moving through the game. And the final reward for playing the game is, of course, a Tomb of Knowledge, which gives you tons of unlocks as well. So there's lots of different ways to encourage you to keep going on and going for the next thing, and that carrot and stick thing that's popular in so many MMOs. And lastly, let's go ahead and rate this thing, Raef. What do we think about this game?
And I was going to ask you, do you want to rate it right now? Because it's an MMO, it's an existing thing. Yeah, you probably do want to rate it, right?
I won't. Maybe we won't rate it by a D6, but I'll rate what I think about whether or not you should try this game. How's that? I'll rate it. I'll rate it basically. I have three.
Yeah, let's rate it. Yeah, go ahead.
I have three categories to rate this thing by. First, if you're a fan of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, okay, you listen to Podhammer. Pretty much, I will say to you, you must play this game. Okay, it's the richest, most immersive experience in the Games Workshop universe to date. Okay, it's more of a must-play for fantasy fans than Dawn of War was for 40K fans. Okay, I would say this is a 2+ game just to walk around and see it, just to see the world come to life, see it happening. If you like Warhammer, if you can quote to me the various Warhammer novels, if you know who Nagash is, if you know who Darkblade is, you need to play this game. Felix and Grotrek are in this game. They're all there. It's amazing, okay? If you are a fan of the thing, you have to play it. That's all there's to it. That's simple. If you're an existing MMO player and you love WoW and you've maxed all your WoW characters, I'm not sure what's new here. Okay, there's not that much really amazing. Realm versus Realm is cool, but I don't think it's going to blow your WoW-loving mind. It's got rich fluff and rich history, and I did hear a podcast called The Destruction Dolls by this lady who also plays WoW, and she's now playing War, and she's going to play both. And she's really getting into the War universe and really interested in GW. She never played before. She's kind of getting interested in it, so I think it'll lure some people in. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a 4 or 5+ to WoW players, unless you're just bored of WoW and looking for something different. If you're a WoW fan, I don't know that there's much in War that's going to be like, oh my goodness, they've reinvented the genre.
Especially with Wrath of the Lich King coming out, which is supposed to be blowing the doors out of WoW, you know.
Now here's my interesting thing, though. If you're a video game fan who's never really been into the MMO before, because you're not a big fan of grinding, which is the idea of just constantly working to level your character, chopping trees, baking pies, killing small rodents. But you do like online combat game like Gears of War or Halo or Counter-Strike, I think there's a lot to like here in the Realm versus Realm stuff. And this may be the MMO gateway drug for you. So it might be worth checking out if you're one of those guys who just doesn't like the slow pace of MMOs. But this game may be a little faster paced in terms of fancy footwork.
I don't think I can rate it because I haven't played it, but I'll give my comments from what you've told me about the game and what I know about WoW. You have to remember, folks, that Russ is like a hermit that's lived in the woods for 100 years when he gets excited about a new game, and spice traders come up and they're like, "Here, Hermit Russ, taste this. This is sugar." And he tastes sugar. He'll be like, "Raef, you can't believe it. I had this thing. It's called sugar. It's the greatest stuff ever." And then 3 months later, the spice traders come back and they give him cinnamon. He loves cinnamon.
But sugar's still good. Sugar is still good.
Right. So you just have to know, folks, okay, that's Russ gets excited being the connoisseur video gamer that he is. Just some kind of categorical evidence. I asked the folks at GameStop, and I said, hey, what kind of sales are you seeing Wrath of the Lich King to War? And they said, well, War's doing better than we thought, but it's still, 8 pre-orders of Wrath of the Lich King to 1 of War.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And what's funny is, I don't know why this is. Could just be that people are Blizzard fanboys, but almost every WoW player I know, I've asked them in guild chat, and these are strangers and people I know, hey, you going to check out War? Because I wanted to check it out. I like checking out games too. And they're like, no. It's probably because they have too much invested in their character, right, Russ?
I'd say that, but just as a point of reference counterpoint, last year when Rock Band came out, Guitar Hero outsold it because Guitar Hero was the known property. But there are very few people who are fans of the music rhythm genre that would argue that Guitar Hero is a better game than Rock Band.
Oh, no way. No way.
So
Yep.
I'm not saying that War is going to kill WoW, but I think what will happen is
I know you're not.
with word of mouth, as people play it more and more, people will start taking a look at this game that thought they never would. And I can't stress enough, if you're a fan of Warhammer Fantasy, you got to check this out. And that is my opinion of War.
Yeah, and in my review of it is, if you are like me and you want to see what this whole experience of the MMO world is like, join WoW. If you're in WoW or have fit the categories that Russ pointed out to you, and you're sick of WoW or you just want to change, I would say check out War. That's my recommendation. I'm Raef Hollywood Granger, and this is the Hollywood Minute, brought to you by Dave Farr, who thinks that I should be comfortable calling myself Raef, not Hollywood, although the Raef Minute does sound funny and may bring back memories of my exploits in the bedroom. So today's topic is, why do I love comic books? I mean, here I am, a 39-year-old dude, and very often you'll find me on my own couch, lovingly sorting my comic books, obsessively putting them right amount of tape on the bag and board, or just kicking back, enjoying a good read. It dawned on me one time as my wife walked by, did she ever think she'd marry a guy who reads comics? All I mean is that it's not exactly mainstream like, say, watching football on the couch. So why do I love them so much? I guess I love collecting and hoarding aspect. Something inside of me feels satisfied collecting them, putting them all neat in their boxes with their bag and board. You know, there's certainly nostalgia. Reading comic books brings me back to a time in my life when I first discovered Spider-Man. But there's more than that. There are great reads in there today, too. I'll put a list of Raef's reads on the website. And finally, I think there's being part of a community that keeps up with what is going on in the comic book universe, like what's happening to Wolverine, or what's going on in the Skrull invasion, or how will the new detective writer assigned to the Punisher Max series do? So, do you love comics? If so, let me know, and I'm always looking for a new good read. Well, that's my story.
The views and opinions expressed in the Hollywood Minute in no way, shape, or form relate to the views, opinions, or fever dreams of the D6 Generation, the D6Generation.com, info at the D6Generation.com, Russ, Craig, the wives at the D6Generation.com, Karen, Nicole, any guests on the D6Generation.com, or any other rational thinking creature in this or any other universe.
When wives attack.
Hello, this is Karen, Craig's wife.
And this is Nicole, Russ's wife. And this week our shout out is very sweet. Happy 10th anniversary to Erica from Nils. Thanks for being such an incredibly supportive gaming spouse, pretending to be interested when I drone on about my latest gaming achievement, turning a blind eye to all the stuff in the garage, and even helping out with my latest project on occasion. You're definitely a 0+ with the reroll. And it says, and thanks also to all the other gaming spouses, without whose support we'd have a lot fewer opponents.
Oh, how nice.
And it's his 10th anniversary, and because he's being nice to his wife, that's why he'll have an 11th. And also, I should let everyone know, this wasn't the only thing he did. He also took his wife for a weekend and did a wine tasting. See, because if all he did was this, as cool as our podcast is, the 10th would be the last.
You know, but how cool are we that we're like a gift to someone like that?
I
so
know.
Cool we are.
It's like that's kind of neat. I don't think I've ever done that before. Sort of cool.
Well, happy anniversary to both of you, because you must be listening.
Go you, yay. 10 years.
How long have you been married?
How long have I been married?
Yeah.
Almost 17 years.
Nuh-uh, 17?
Yeah. Yeah. She's looking at me like she has never met me before.
I had no idea.
Yeah, 17 years in January.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're ancient.
17 years.
Okay, get over it, Karen. Move on.
I hit the big 2 a couple months ago.
Woohoo, 2 years. Woohoo, go Karen.
17. I thought you were going to say like 9 or something.
No, 17.
Did you get married like the day you graduated high school? Or?
No. The couple days after I graduated college, so you know.
All right. Well, that's better, because that means you've been with someone all that time.
I have forever.
Okay. I digress. This week, our emails are getting more and more. And we got a few this week. Dan from Married Games gave us an email. I know he emails the boys too.
Yeah, Dan is my game supplier for all my new games.
And Julia, I think she calls herself Wolf Girl.
I think that was it, yep.
Talking about what it's like to be a girl gamer and agreed with us about when you walk into a store or whatever and they're all like, oh my God, it's a girl, it's a girl. Ray from Australia. He actually, I wanted to say to him, he liked our Battlestar Galactica mini review, whatever you call it, and asked us to do the same when the boys review Cutthroat Cavern. And I definitely will. I'm excited to because I mentioned last episode that I loved the game.
Yep.
Played it again last week. Loved the game. So even without our review, I'm pretty much behind it saying, go ahead. Everybody I played with it, loved it. So we will talk about it when the boys talk about it. Not that I mentioned that to Nicole, but I think we should do that.
We'll be reviewing that and talking about it later.
That's how much I liked it. Rick Dyson talked about Blocus. That he plays Blocus with his gal.
Week.
Yeah. Did you ever play Blocus?
I haven't played it, but I almost got it. I was in the gaming store looking at all the boxes and picking it out like a chick. Oh, I like that cover.
Yeah.
I like that cover, and I almost got that one.
I've played that, so I will. When we get into our topic, I'll talk about it because he was looking for more complex board games. And Nils, when he oh no, who is this that wrote this?
That was Doug.
We want to thank Doug because we love the sentences that come in these emails that say, When Wives Attack is the best portion of the podcast. And what's even better is that he didn't mail that to us. He mailed it to the boys.
Yeah, he meant to mail it to us, but he sent it to the guys, and then he mistyped
Which is awesome.
He put an extra space in there. And, yeah, so the guys didn't even send it to us. They're like, you got it, right? I think they were just hiding it.
Yeah,
I think
and
Russ
extra,
really didn't want to show me.
And extra thanks to Nils for putting our auction so high that we crushed the boys.
Yeah, we kicked their butt.
Almost half of the entire thing was just our little segment.
It's some awesome ammunition to gloat all week. You have no idea how happy that makes the wives, let me tell you.
I do. I call my mom. I call my dad. I tell my friends. We were like $28.
Well, and Russ is like, he sends that email out and tells everyone did, and it's always Craig responding like, oh man, this has got to stop. They're never going to let us live this down. I'm like, no, keep it going. Oh, and I also want to say real quick before we go on, Julia, who sent us she sent us a lot of emails. We chatted back and forth, and she gave me an idea for a bunch of different games. So she has a lot of games that she suggested. So I might be buying some more games from Dan at Myriad.
You guys seem to have
we were
similar tastes.
Back and forth. Yeah, exactly. So.
And I'll just say it now because I can hear it. If you hear a noise in the background, my dog is whining.
That's Benny the Beagle. Neither one of us is breathing heavily or whining. That would be the
He was
the
having a panic attack in the car, so I had to bring him in.
So he's right here next to us podcasting with us this week.
And so we have that and... the tea kettle, is that what goes off?
The tea kettle, that's the other room. The boys get the tea kettle, the manly tea kettle. We get
the dog.
We
get my little wimpy dog. Okay, this week we are going to talk about 2-player games. Good games just to play with you and your spouse, partner, whatever.
And we actually got a lot of people who asked us about this. Like, if
coincidentally,
I'm just gonna play, we had already thought about doing this, and then we got a couple of emails this week, and people were asking about that because they wanted to know, if I'm not playing a game with a bunch of people and it's just me and my wife, what do you suggest we play? So, Karen, go.
Yeah, because I think Nicole's going to be the one to talk about this the most because I keep repeating the same games. Because once again, my number one, especially to the guy who wrote me about Blocus, Rick Dyson, if she's playing Blocus and she's enjoying Blocus, she will enjoy Carcassonne the Castle. I can pretty much guarantee it. I've played Blocus. I don't particularly I liked Blocus the first couple times I played it, and then I didn't like it anymore. It got to be, I don't know, my eyes burned staring at the board.
That.
Yeah, and my girlfriends played it, and we all played it, and we were like, oh, this is cool. And then after 2 games, we're like, all right, enough.
Done.
Yeah,
I didn't pick up Blocus. You talk about how games that are themed and games that aren't. Blocus isn't really themed.
No, it's not at all.
It was just doesn't the cover of the box have little pictures of the little diamonds or whatever?
Yeah, because that's what the game is.
And when I was looking, I just wanted something that had a theme, that had a story behind it, which I didn't really think how much that mattered. But I literally was like, no, that one looks cool, but it doesn't have anything fun for a storyline. So
and a tip, I think you have to look online or something because I think Blocus is like a 3 and 4 player game. You can play it with 2 players, but I think you move in 3 rows or something because it's
Oh,
it's
they
a big
alter it to
board,
make it
so
work for two.
yeah, so you might want to look at that because I've never played it with two before. But if she liked that, I can pretty much guarantee you she's gonna like Carcassonne the Castle. Not you can play regular Carcassonne with two people, but Carcassonne the Castle is specifically made for two people. So if she's going in that direction, I think that's a great. It's a great two-player game. I also mentioned if she's not over to the complex side yet, if she doesn't, like the themes and stuff like that, Sequence is great. I mentioned that last week. It's a card game with a board, and it's kind of like bingo. Last Night on Earth is a great one. Craig reminded me today because I asked him what we've played.
I think that's the one we just borrowed from
Yeah,
you guys.
probably. It's the frog people that Russ... like frog, it's brutal that I don't know this because they were on from Gen Con. The frog, the people that make it are the frog people. If you listen to this podcast, you'll know who I mean.
Frog people.
And it's a good game. It may not be a great game to like bring in right away. It may be like if she's played like a great gateway would be like cards and then Sequence and then Blocus and then Carcassonne. If she likes Carcassonne, then you can go to Last Night on Earth because it does have like zombies and it does.
Is the one. It's sitting on the floor
and it gets into rolling to fight and stuff like that. So it does go that extra level, so you don't want to bring that one in right away. But if she's okay to go to that level, if you think she is, then it's a pretty good two-player game. I think it's made for groups, but I enjoyed playing it with two players. And a tip for this one is I think girls enjoy being the humans more than they do the zombies.
Flesh-eating zombies, that wouldn't be as cool.
Well, there's less to do. Like, it's more... The zombies are more mechanical. They kind of like do the same stuff.
Because they're zombies.
Yeah, and the people, you can move around, and they have different abilities, and you can pick which person.
So you get
and
to do a little bit more, play a little bit more with
and
that.
they're not zombies, so if she's not totally into the whole thing, she may not want to play a zombie.
Do they eat brains?
No.
Do they... No?
No.
Then
they just come after you. I don't know. Maybe they do in the directions. I just know
It
the
feels
zombies
like
are the bad guys. I don't know what they actually
defined
do.
That they eat brains. If they catch you, you lose some smarts or something because they ate half your brain.
I have to say that I'm going to give myself a little props here, my Risk story.
Oh, go for it. She has notes, and all it says is Risk story.
Because this is what I think is the coolest thing I've ever done as a gamer wife. So, because I've done it all. I've done, go to the tournaments and, pick out things with him and everything. But we were playing a game, and I said to him, there's a game that I like. I want to say it's Age of Empires. I don't know if it is. Craig, I always forget the name of it, and Craig reminds me. Mm-hmm. But he kept saying, I can't believe you like this. If you like this, you'd like Risk. This is like Risk. This is like Risk. I said, well, then, heck, why don't we go get some Risk then if I like that? And
did you have to go buy that? He must have that in the basement.
He had never played it. He had never done anything with Risk. And because I said, would I like Risk? He goes, oh, I don't know. I never played it. And I'm like,
I find that hard to believe.
I know,
Russ
right?
has played that game. Oh my gosh, so many times.
Unless he played it when he was like 12 and didn't remember. But
forgot.
He really was like, I've never played it. So
you bought it.
Not only did I buy it.
Karen bought it, not Craig. Karen went.
I read the directions with if anybody out there knows me, and some of you do know that I don't read, and I read.
Well, she can read.
I can read. I just don't
read directions.
And I don't like read anything. Like even when we're going over the emails, like I don't. When you go, she said this and this, and like she did.
Yeah,
like I didn't even see it in the email.
You're like, she said what in the email?
Not only did I read the directions, I highlighted the important parts so that when we played, we could see right there.
Immediately flip to the
And then when he came home, I taught him how to play Risk.
Very good. We need like a little clapping.
I did. I was like, I'm the coolest game ever. We didn't really like it. We played it like twice.
You didn't like it?
Well, I'll give you a secret as to why we didn't like it. It's because I crushed him every single time.
Yeah, see? They don't like
that
games
stopped
where
being
you
a fun game.
But we love those games.
So we played that for about
a
week and it went away.
Him at a strategy
every
game
single
like that?
time I crushed him, and we couldn't figure out why. And Risk is one of those.
You're smarter.
Oh, I forgot.
Because
I always forget that.
Girls rule, boys drool. That's why you crushed him.
Risk is one of those games that as soon as one person starts to win, I guess they just end up demolishing the other side.
Right, they kind of trample if you're playing
so that's
with
what would
six
happen.
People, the other five give up because it's like you're done.
Yeah. So that's what happened. But that's my great I'm a good gamer wife story.
You are
I tell that because we played that with two players, but I wouldn't recommend it, especially now with all the the cool games out.
Yeah,
it was kind
stuff.
of like
Risk
the
is
squares.
old school.
Yeah, it was pretty old school. So those are my votes. Carcassonne always number one. Last Night on Earth is really good, and basic ones are Sequence. And someone else mentioned in the emails is Cranium, which I love. They have a Cranium Hoopla. Cranium's the party game.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I saw that on
They
there.
have a Cranium Hoopla, and I do own that.
Have you
it was a
played it?
gift. No.
I'll have
That's
to pick
probably
it up
why I
and play
wouldn't
it.
say, because they're probably listening to this. The people who gave it to us.
Oh, darn it.
But we've never
thanked me
played
and told
it.
me you loved it.
No, it wasn't you. It wasn't you.
No, I don't mean me. I mean whoever.
Oh, yeah. So I vow to play that this week with Craig, and then I will let you know next week if it was any good, because it is a 2-player game, and that would be great for the girls who don't like gamer games at all, because it's a total party game. So I will let you know about Cranium Hoopla, and that's it for me.
Okay, I had 2 games. I went out and I actually did what you did, Karen, with one of them. Wait, I got to look because I always say the title wrong. It is The Pillars of the Earth.
Yes.
I always want to make it something.
And I'm very
like
interested in this game now
and
that
it's
you've
based
played
on a
it.
Ken Follett book, which apparently I've
Who?
never read, but it
What?
says right on the box Ken Follett. So, and which actually kind of, you were talking about things based on TV shows. When I
Yes.
thought, I'm like, oh, is this going to be cheesy because it's based on a book and it's kind of stupid? And Russ said, no, it's going to be really good. It gets great reviews on, there's a website that he looks everything up. I can't remember what it is. But even the guy in the store is like, oh, no, it gets a 7 stars out of, 10, and that's a good rating. So I did what you did. I said, I'm going to see if I can teach him to play this game. I did exactly the same thing.
Craig told me that, yeah.
Yeah. So I open it up, and it's a nice, quick, and dirty little book. It's not like a huge rule
dirty
book to
book?
go. Well, I didn't mean dirty.
Sorry, go ahead.
It was a figure of speech, Karen. And I went through it, and we did it. And it says, actually, in the directions, this game actually says, don't read through the entire set of directions. It says, play the first round, play the first bit. Then once you've done that, then keep
those
reading.
are my kind of directions.
Because if you try and read through the whole thing, you're kind of like, what the? It's just too much. And it looks like a lot because there's like all these, you kind of move around the board in different phases as you go through it, and your little different things happen. But and I looked, I'm like, there's like 16 different things in this board. This game is going to take 12 hours to play. I'm like getting aggravated as I'm starting to read it. And the very first set through is kind of, you're just sort of learning, like, okay, I see what happens here, I see what happens here. But then when you finish up the rest of the game, it's like boom, 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 boom. It goes really fast.
Yeah.
And I really liked it. I really did like it. It's all sort of like a civilization building thing, and you're working together to build a cathedral. So you're not really necessarily you're both trying to do the same thing, but you're trying to do it better than the other person. You're trying to get these victory points, and like if you end up with 10 and I end up with 9, I win. So you can do stuff where it's like you might have cards where you can select certain cards in the beginning where it might do absolutely nothing for me, but I can see that it would really help you. So I just bought some cards so Russ couldn't. He's like, dang it, that was my plan.
Like that.
Yeah, so it's fun to do that. And I won that. I think he won once and I won twice, which makes it like my new favorite game because I beat him more than he
I think when they do achievements in gaming, do they even talk about who won? I don't know if they did. No. And we're always like, I crushed him.
Our achievements in gaming revolve around whether or not we beat the guys. Okay? You can see a whole male-female perspective right there. We won. It was a good game.
Yeah.
But no, I really liked it. It was a fun game, and it has these little pieces for you to make the cathedral. It's like 6 pieces. You put one out each turn, and it was just kind of fun to build a little cathedral. It doesn't mean anything, but it was a cute little thing to see it. Like, oh, there's the roof, there's the pillars as you're putting it on the table. And as you keep playing it, the first time around there were some cards where I just thought, oh, I don't see why that would be helpful. But then as you start to play, you're like, oh, now I see why that card would have been really good to have. And I should have bought that in the second round. So it gets a little more. Each time you play, you get a little bit more of a handle on it, but it's really easy to learn. It's a lot going on, but it's very easy to learn. So I really like that one. That was a good one. And the other one, Russ picked this one out, but I needed his help with the directions, although I did read through them first. This is called Galaxy Trucker, which I think we were watching way too much Ice Road Truckers. I don't know if you saw that show.
I know of it, yeah.
Russ initially said to me, yeah, it's like Ice Road Truckers in space. And I'm like, oh, okay, if that's what you say, hon. But it is fun. And this one has literally more pieces than any game I saw. Like, Russ was sitting there popping out pieces. I'm like, are we ready to play? Nope. Are we ready to play? Nope. He's just popping out all these pieces. And at first I'm like, this is just way too many pieces. But it's fun. You have to build spaceships with these little cards that you lay out on a little grid.
Yeah.
And you only have so much time to build it. You have to put, little guns on the front, little engines on the back, and then you draw these random cards and meteors hit you and different things. But it's very tongue-in-cheek. Like, you have these little people that, like, sit on the cards. You have little aliens that sit on the cards. Even the directions. Like, I was trying to find a funny bit in the directions. Like, the directions are even written kind of, like, tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
Now I can't find one. I have the book in front of me. Now I can't find something funny. Like, it's talking about, there's a phase in there called Abandoned Ship. It's a card you can get, and these little yellow block, and it says, sometimes you'll find a ship that you'll be tempted to keep for yourself. Don't be greedy. Let the crew have it. Then it says there's probably a reason that ship was abandoned. Like sort of a silly thing. Like, give it to him. It's probably got like evil aliens on side you don't want to deal with. So I liked Galaxy Trucker. That one took a little more time to learn. I started to get a little bit frustrated at first because I was like getting hit by meteors and feeling like I was just getting blown to pieces, and Russ was better at it the first time. Second time I won, though. So the second time around it was cooler because I won.
Yep.
But I like that one. And that's a good two-player game. Both of them are really good for two players. We haven't played them with more than that, but we had a good time playing them just two players. They each took maybe like an hour to play, so it wasn't like you were sitting there forever, but it was fun. And I definitely can see how if you had more than two players, especially Pillars of the Earth, would get much more complicated. You want to make your stuff work,
more
but
strategy
break other
stuff.
people's. Yeah. Whereas Galaxy Truckers, there's not so much. The strategy, I don't think, is as much as it can get in Pillars of the Earth. It's a little bit more just kind of for the fun of it. There's a little strategy in there.
This past Christmas, Craig and I, we put like a limit or something, and so we don't spend so much money because we don't have kids or anything yet. So it's just like, and he bought me all games. I just was thinking about this. All games for us to play. He bought me Travel Scrabble for two players. Because I love Scrabble. But talking about theme games and like doing the TV show and stuff, he bought me Law and Order. I am.
You and the TV show.
I am
That's
a
funny.
crazy Law and Order person. Like, I have it on in my house all the time. I don't like sit and watch it. It's just always on when I'm cleaning.
Well, that's because it's always on. Aren't there like 12 like that in CSI? There's 18 different cities where they take place.
So one night we're finally like, and he bought me, we had so many games from Christmas that we didn't play that one. It was like we're playing all these other games, and so finally I was like, okay, we have to give this Law and Order a try, and it was horrid. Like,
really?
It was so bad.
You have a game not
I don't even think we finished. It was really?
Really?
It was a really bad version of Clue. Like, it was really bad.
So there's a tip. Do not get Law
you
and
don't
Order,
need to get Law and Order. Even if you love the show. There's just no need. It was really bad. So those were our two-player games, but I did want to, if I can give Battlestar Galactica another little...
Sure.
Really good. Like, I really like that game. Is that my dog making the noise?
I don't know. I think it was. Just a little whine. I think that was Benny. He's looking very... he's looking at Karen with these dog eyes going like, please, woman.
We played Battlestar Galactica again this weekend. First time playing it. We had 5 people? Yeah, 5 people playing.
Yeah.
I do. I really like it. I
really
like it a lot.
it,
I do. And I go
who the
bananas.
Good guys and bad guys are.
Yeah.
It's getting a lot easier to understand.
Yes, it's getting easier to understand. I still... I think my girlfriend Sheree was complaining because the first half of the game I literally go, okay, what should I, like, Craig, just move, like, just do whatever you think it is I should do. Like, I don't, and then like halfway through I get like way into it because of the Cylons and everything. But I liked it very much, and the reason I know that I liked it and it's a good game is because I've played it now 3 or 4 times, and I can't even remember who won. Like, I just had that much fun playing the game that at the end I can't tell you if it was the Cylons or
based on our conversation tonight, winning is a big deal.
Yeah, so like I really just enjoyed playing it. So.
In my 2 seconds of Battlestar Galactica comment, I got stickers for the back of my car that I ordered because I'm a dork, and they're little Vipers, the Viper ships. You know what those are?
I know they're ships. I think they're good guys, right?
They're good guys.
Yeah.
And I stuck them in the back of my car because my license plate says Raider.
Yes.
And it's silver.
Yes.
And it's a Scion. Get it, Scion, Cylon. See, so I'm going to play on words. And now I have little Viper stickers.
You
that I can
do
put
like
the
sci-fi there, huh?
Yeah, I do. I was so excited. Like, Russ, we have to put the stickers on when you get home. So I have little Viper kill stickers on the back of my car.
Very nice. Very nice.
So anyone in New Hampshire sees that car driving around, now you know that would be me.
Let's just review the names of the games. So I had Carcassonne, Last Night on Earth, Sequence,
and I had Galaxy Trucker and Ken Follett's Pillars of the Earth. Those were my 2 big ones.
And so those are our picks for 2-player games for right now.
Yeah.
In the future, if we come up with some, we'll let you know.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, and we will
see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
All right, welcome everybody. We are here with the man known as the baddest man in gaming, otherwise known as Erik Yaple. Welcome to the show, Erik.
Oh, thanks for having me, Raef.
You're welcome. We're going to get a chance to talk to Erik, and I'm just going to lead right in. He'll introduce who he is and where he's from, and then we'll just get a sense of what you have to tell us. So,
Sounds
Erik,
good.
who are you? Where are you from?
You'd not be
Well,
Erik.
I was born under the name Erik Jason Yaple, son of a welder and a lady who took a lot of phone orders. Born in the Inland Empire of California, which is important later to the story. I started gaming in high school when the guy who became my best friend used to bring these role-playing game books into Spanish class, and instead of listening to the Spanish teacher, I'd take his books away from him and flip through them. And
what kind of grade did you get in Spanish?
I got a D, and I only got that D because I played football.
There you go.
Hey, whatever it
I had
takes,
about
man.
a 35% in that class, and he cut me a break so I could stay eligible.
Stay in school, kids.
So, yeah. But, so I, like most things in my life, whenever I start doing something, I get pretty into it hardcore. So, went to a local convention, went around, met some people that were some alumni of my high school, and they were working at a game store, and started hanging out at that game store, and, eventually got more and deeper into the whole gaming thing. Hooked up with a game designer named Dan Verson back when I was about 16 or 17, and I did some quality assurance work, play testing for his Down in Flames game way back when. And from there, I got a publication in Space Gamer Fantasy Gamer after Better Games had purchased it, which I think they were probably about the 37th owner of said magazine.
It's a volatile
You have to
market.
be pretty old to actually remember Space Gamer Fantasy Gamer nowadays.
Right.
But I got a publication there in one of their role-playing games, and then I got a job at the game store at All-Star Games in Diamond Bar, California. And during my tenure there, some buddies of mine, including Matt Wilson, who used to work there, and David Williams, who was one of our frequent customers, and a couple other gentlemen, made a game called Legend of the Five Rings.
Oh, yeah.
And
I think I heard of that.
Started up All Direct Entertainment Group. Well, I transferred to San Bernardino College, and when I did that, I started looking for a job, and I heard that Dave Williams needed a intern to help him out.
Mm-hmm.
So I started working for $50 a week at AEG, just kind of doing some design interny things, making them photocopies and, giving them some card ideas and stuff like that. And they, I have a good hustle about me, so they kept me on, and eventually I worked up to $75 a week and then $200 a week, and pretty soon I graduated college, and they said, well, we'll give you a chunk of change to stick around.
Nice.
And so I stuck around.
Great.
And around that time, we had started working with my buddy Dan Verson again, who started working on 7C. I then took over lead development on that, and from there I became the Warlord brand manager, Warlord Saga of the Storm. About that time, or a few years later, around 2003, I sought out some employment with Sabretooth Games, and there I became the head of product development. And then when Games Workshop dissolved Sabretooth, this year, I called up my buddy Matt, who of course was doing all the awesome War Machine and Monsterpocalypse stuff. That I started, basically crying and begging for a job, and he took pity on me.
I can't imagine somebody your
and,
size crying, Eric.
Yeah, it was like, help,
Oh, okay.
kind of thing.
I can see it now.
And and so now I'm here at Privateer Press, kicking butt and working on the Monsterpocalypse development, and
nice.
bringing a little of the Baddest Man in Gaming to Privateer Press, and
Awesome.
bring a little Privateer Press to the Baddest Man in Gaming.
So would you say that a person who really wants to get into game design, less Spanish and more hustle? That basically the lesson of your climb. That's what I got out of it.
Yeah, pretty much that whole you watch enough Rudy, and maybe some Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
Combine that with and
There you go.
just read your D&D and your Star Wars RPG during
During
Spanish class.
Spanish.
You're good to go.
Hey.
There you go.
I like it.
I had some follow-up questions, but Russ, do you have any questions on
Well,
that front?
just how long have you been at a Privateer now, Eric?
I started pretty much April 1st.
Okay, so so you're just newbie there then.
Do you know for a fact that your job wasn't like a joke, or
Say again?
You started on April 1st, and I'm just afraid, we've met you several times, and we like you a lot. I would hate to think that your job ended up being like a joke.
Yeah, the worst April Fool's joke ever.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Drive out there, and
Were you nervous when you heard on April 1st that they were giving you a job? Was there a moment of fear?
Well, I actually kind of showed up to fill out all my paperwork on the 28th of March. So I think it was a little safe. But my first real work day, I believe, was
Matt's not the kind of guy that
April
would make
1st,
you.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done. Okay, that's my last dumb question.
I like that. That's great. Erik, when you were giving us your gamer cred history, what was the first? You mentioned the very first game, and you were speaking so fast that my pen literally ran out of ink. I couldn't write it down. What was that first game you mentioned? What kind of game was that? This was back when you were in high school, before you were working for the game store.
Yeah, Down in Flames is this game that my buddy Dan Verson designed way back in 1991, 92.
And it's
something
called
like that, maybe
Down,
90.
Down in Flames?
And
Okay.
it's World War II game with where you play a World War II airplane, and you duke it out in the skies, right? It's a dogfighting card game. And I learned a lot from Dan, and so a lot of the card games I worked on, was, it has a good root with, my friendship with Dan and some of the stuff I learned working with him, and when we worked on 7C together, there's some elements of that in 7C. So if players remember 7C from however long ago that was now, 8 years ago.
And is 7C's part of the Legend of the Five Rings, or is that a separate game? Or
it was a separate world about pirates and duking it out ship to ship.
Okay.
But
They did more ninjas,
it had
though.
a very similar dueling kind of mechanic with playing cards and countering cards and stuff.
Oh, okay.
I remember
and
the
so
artwork. It was pretty cool.
It was cool artwork.
Oh, I don't remember that. Yeah, I don't remember that one. All right, and so from there, you kind of worked in the game store, met some of the other people in the gaming, now who we know in the gaming industry, and then you had a tenure at Sabretooth Games, correct?
Correct.
What was that
I went from the game store to Albrecht Entertainment Group, and then
That was
to Sabretooth. Yeah.
And what? And Russ, you probably know more about Sabretooth. Let people know from your DACA days what the Sabretooth games were.
Well, I mean, Sabretooth Games was involved with Games Workshop heavily when they produced the Games Workshop card lines for the
That was
Warhammer
the
cards, and
collectible
the 40K
card chain-
cards.
card,
Yep,
right.
yep. And they eventually also did. I don't know. Were you there then, Erik, when they did those? And then they also did the Lord of the Rings miniature collectible thing.
I came on in 2003,
Yep.
the end of 2003, and they were just about to release Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
And so I helped out with overseeing some of the not actually doing the design, but overseeing a lot of the production. And then, of course, chipping in because everyone, it's a team, kind of thing.
Very cool.
But when so the expansions sets and then some of the individual guys, that was during my tenure as the head of product development there.
Now, do you think
I also worked on Warcry as the lead developer for a while, and
cool.
oversaw 40K. Yeah.
Oh, neat. Now, when I'm interested in your work with Lord of the Rings only because it sounds like great experience that you're bringing to the Monsterpocalypse product. I mean, did you feel that? What kind of things did you learn on Lord of the Rings that you think might have helped some of the things that happened at Monsterpocalypse, or was Monsterpocalypse so far down the line that were you able to bring anything you learned from that to the Monsterpocalypse product, or how did that work?
There was I wasn't involved too much with the initial development on Lord of the Rings, right? That had pretty much been set to press. In terms of Monsterpocalypse, that game was practically done when I got there. There was just some stuff that needed to be smoothed out, and I gave some suggestions. But it was really, that's Matt's creation, and that's Matt's genius in that game there. So there wasn't a lot to, other than smoothing out some rough edges, saying, hey, maybe we don't need this rule, maybe we don't need that, maybe we could word this that way. But again, it was just me hopping in, and I was able to bring my experience from Lord of the Rings and then some of those other games, so that I could just hop in and get moving right away. And that's kind of where my advantage was there. I didn't have to get brought up to speed as long as someone just off the streets would have to be.
So your role with Monsterpocalypse then has been, I mean, sort of like what they call in the video game industry, sort of a community manager, or because I noticed you were involved with the Monster Insider blog. That was pretty much all you, right?
Right. Well, right now with Monsterpocalypse, like I write that blog is kind of, that's a promotional tool to let people know about the game and, get them excited and stuff like that and share some of the, inside stuff. But my main day-to-day duties is, like, I'm working on the second and third sets right now.
Oh, cool.
For Monsterpocalypse. Wow. Those are my designs.
So are you designing, like what are you doing on that? Are you actually, like, designing what the models are going to look like, or the rules, or a little bit of everything? Or
how does that work?
Basically the rules for the individual models.
Oh, cool.
And then if any extra abilities are needed, I come up with those and all that. And then, run it through playtest, make the decisions as to, what stats go up, what stats go down, that kind of stuff. And then run it through the editing ringer through with all the people. And I just got through laying out the little stat cards that'll go on the set 2 guides, and we're about to send those off to press.
Oh, cool.
Now, with the design of Monsterpocalypse, are you going from, like, do you guys brainstorm and come up with some really cool monster ideas and then put rules to the monsters? Or, are you starting with miniatures and going with the rules, or do you guys come up with concepts for the rules and then the miniatures are designed around those?
It's a two-way street there, right?
Oh,
sometimes, so working on set 2 and 3, Matt and I had a meeting, and he was like, "Well, I want to do this and this," and had some visual ideas he really wanted to produce.
Yeah.
And so in those regards, right, you look at the visuals and you kind of figure out what kind of story you're going to tell with them, right?
Right.
How those monsters or those units are going to act, and then what abilities do we have or do we need to make that story come across? With some of the other stuff for, like, set 3, we're still hammering out some of the details. So, we might actually start with, it'd be cool if this faction had something that does something along these lines, right? Or, like, this faction might need a flying guy, or this faction could really use a jumping guy that could get somewhere to hold something.
Gotcha.
And maybe he has a specific skill. And then you might develop a look around that concept, so that the figure ends up representing the model. So it's really, you just got to be, as a designer, you just got to be flexible and be willing to work both directions,
Right.
Cool.
So part of it's game balance, right? Like, this faction could really use some of this, so we're going to add that. And part of it's just inspiration and fun. Like, it would be really cool to have this kind of guy running around the table.
Right. And, making sure everyone or each faction has a fair amount of tactical options.
Right.
Not every faction has to be, homogenous, but, everyone should have a fair crack at executing some of the basic strategies of the game,
Cool.
That was one of the things I wondered about, Eric, when you're designing. I was thinking of, like, the butterfly effect. How do you, do you just dream big and you just put it down on paper as far as what the rules are going to do? Because then I'm thinking, God, like, I think it would.
I think
of a second or third set. What's that?
Yeah. Basically, what I do is I tend to aim really high, and me and Matt have a very similar philosophy on this, where it's about cutting down to that core essence of what's going to make the figure or the rule set or whatever great to get across that. I think of things in terms of a story, right? I have a background in creative writing and English from college, and so I just kind of equate it to, games are just another medium. And so if you can just get it down to that bare essence of what that element, whether it be a card or a miniature or I guess those are most of the elements people use, and get it down to that bare essence to tell the story that you want to tell, right? And because not everything needs to be an exact simulation, right? There's some rules in Monsterpocalypse that are really geared towards it being a fun game rather than this, like, real simulation of a giant monster rampaging through downtown. But it still gets across the fun and excitement and the story of a monster, just destroying downtown, and we didn't really need, like, line of sight rules or facing to get that across.
Right.
Right.
Actually, that reminds me of when Craig and Raef were actually able to talk to Matt briefly at Gen Con. He mentioned some of the design concepts in War Machine were similar, where occasionally that they look at the what would the movie do? What would this be like in the movie, and then work the rules.
Or what
off
would
of
the
that.
video game do?
Right, or what would the giant monster do in this case, right? And then some of the rules are just fluffy and fun, but they don't really mean anything. It's just kind of neat to have the option to get the visual in your head.
Yeah, and I'll do that too, right? Like, just stick on an extra rule where it doesn't really add to the tactical value or the play value of the figure, but it just kind of, gets that idea across to someone, right? I think there's a great fig in War Machine or actually he's in Hordes, that Ogren, Grun, I'm really bad at names, but Grundar or something like that, Grundon.
The drunken Ogre, we call him.
Ability, the binge drinking ability where he knocks himself down. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it is. And it's pretty good from what I understand, too. That model's actually pretty good on the tabletop.
Yeah,
so it sounds like then, it sounds like you dream big, and then do you scale it down yourself, or do you just kind of throw it out there, let the playtesters go, whoa, that didn't work because of X, Y, and Q?
Well, I throw it out there and let the playtesters figure it out. Sometimes I find out I didn't aim high enough, and so you got to scale some stuff up, right? But most of the time it's about cutting out that stuff that just wasn't useful, or sometimes what you envision as how people might use something might not actually be the way that they use it, right? People think in different ways,
Yeah.
So I try to cut off all the stuff that's not as useful or whatever to get to the meat, right? To get to the essence of it, so that you got a good element on the table.
So to follow up on that point, when you were at Gen Con, you saw a lot of people playing Monsterpocalypse, sort of a lot of public playing it for the first time, sort of en masse, right? What were some of the more surprising tactics, or were you surprised? Were there anything you saw there that like, wow, we didn't even, or did you guys kind of figure most of it out, or were there any kind of an innovative sort of things players tried, and you're like, gee, we didn't really think about that, but that's neat?
Mostly at Gen Con, because we had done a fair amount of playtesting, right? When I got to Privateer, I was doing 16-hour days.
Wow.
3, 4, 5 days a week sometimes, right? Just trying to get that game out to press and, get all refined. And that wasn't just me, that was the team, right?
Yeah.
We played a lot of games and seen a lot of different strategies, and there's a lot of different types of players in Office, right? So you see these different types. What was fun to watch though was watching people discover the game. That's one of my big thrills actually, is watching them play the game and then learn something about the game and start to use that, and then start to get this mischievousness about it because they're going to take that strategy home and use it against their play group.
Right.
Teaching people about like those dice pools and how you can slowly bleed off the dice pool, so that you can take multiple monster turns and just wreck shop on your opponent's monster.
Yeah, Russ discovered that.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that is a neat mechanic. We've been playing it a little bit, and that's a really fun trick.
On that note, Eric, I don't think I had a fair assessment of the game during demo, which we've explained on the show. And last night, or 2 nights ago, lost track of my days here, Russ played a game with me of Mmorpg. Excuse me, and I had my monster next to 2 buildings, and he was, I forget the technical game term, but he was base to base with me. That might be the term. And I was going to do something, and Russ is like, no, what you should do is pick me up and body slam me into these 2 buildings. And I totally wrecked the buildings. They blew up. They went on fire. His monster was destroyed. That was just such a great visual.
I
was
full
like,
regular
this
form
game's
to hyper
awesome.
form in one hit. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. So it was that I felt like I had that discovery. And you had said on Gen Con, most people, Raef, I said, hey, if there's any tip for Mmorpg for me, what is it? And you said, most people, Raef, they think it has to go monster unit, back and forth, and it doesn't. If you save your dice, you can have back-to-back turns, and I had done that, and that was neat to be able to do that. It added a different level of depth.
It's a great mechanic, I think.
Yeah.
It's the game has it's almost got some chess-like qualities, right? Because the pieces are very you're playing on a grid, and you can see everything very plainly, right? And so you can start to go out, he could end up doing this to me if I do this. If I don't do this, this is what could happen, and you start calculating out. But yet there's this game of chicken thing that starts to happen when you both start bleeding off your dice pools, and it's like, well, how few dice can I get away with using? And then you start blowing rolls, right? And you're like, no, or I could just play it safe and take him turn and deliver some damage this turn, So there's such a depth and level of strategy. I was so surprised to see it when I came to Privateer, right? I was and play, you know, in an awesome way, right? So I'm really thrilled to be working on the game, to be honest, because it keeps me mentally engaged, you know, the entire day during the work day. And
even for 16 hours.
That's what I'm looking for.
So,
yeah, even for 16 hours on those days. Now, I'm only working, you know, the 8-hour days now. So
that's good. I'm glad you're able to sleep now. That's good. So I had a follow-up for you on that, though. So, so you came to Monsterpocalypse when it was pretty much near the end, and, you know, you've had a lot of experience with other collectible games before. What was the biggest thing that surprised you about Monsterpocalypse once you're able to get your hands on it or look at it? What was the most impressive thing about it? Was it the mechanics or what? What really knocked your socks off and said, well, this is really going to be a successful game?
Well, when I showed up, I'd seen a couple of the sculpts and stuff like that were released online, and thought, you know, the visuals were looking cool. When I got there, I got to see all the actual art that they had done for the game,
right.
And that was just gorgeous. It was really evocative, and you got to see like the units hanging out with the monsters, and you know, you're like, oh, there's a G tank, or there's a chopper, or there's a shinobi guy. You know, so I was really digging on that. And now we've got, like, posters in the office with those images on it. It's kind of cool to just sit there and kind of stare at them, you know, when you should be working.
But technically, for you, that is working.
Right.
I mean, for the rest of us, that would be screwing around.
The mindset is a big part of it, right?
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
You're looking for inspiration. That's well.
Yeah. But I got to tell you, I was really impressed with the rule set. They had me read it, their rule doc in the incarnation that was in when I got there. And then sit me down to play it to see how much I picked up on and that kind of thing. It's kind of, you take advantage of those opportunities when you get them to see how well your rule sets are getting across.
Right.
And I did, you know, when I started to see, you know, the guys, they were kicking my butt and I was learning the game and, you know, but it was really cool to see how the different strategies came about and the tricks you could pull off and, you know, the abilities and, you know, all that. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah. So it's the complete package, is what you're saying, in your mind.
I mean, the visuals are great to get an inside scoop on those. But I mean, I'm a gamer's gamer kind of guy, right? Like I want to play the game, and even if they were just little you know, chits or whatever, I'd still dig the heck out of that game, to be honest.
Right.
I had a question along those lines. It's kind of scary, Russ. Russ and I didn't have a chance throughout the day to share our bullet points and our questions, and he's so far like tagged about 5 almost to the letter. So, Russ, that's freaking me out.
Read your mind.
You are a Jedi master when it comes to that.
I can't
read
anything.
Now, Craig, you've asked different questions that I wish I had on my list.
It's a 3-person show, Raef.
Since you're a gamer,
or a
and,
gamer's
you know, what's hotly,
gamer.
Right.
Yes, a gamer's gamer. The baddest man in gaming that you are. You know, there's a lot of debate in the forums. There's a lot of debate among the three of us. The closed box collectible game format. I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that as a gamer, and what your thoughts are about that as part of a company, if it differs.
Oh, you're asking about like blind buy purchases and stuff like that?
Yep.
I still love the blind buy. I'm a collector at heart, and as well, right? I've got this completist mentality about me.
As do we all.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm the guy that not only has to have one of everything, I got to have a play set of everything, right? Because even if that fifth figure isn't useful now, it could be 2 years from now. And, you know.
Well, I noticed your post on the blog is like, if you only buy 24 boxes, you have them all.
Yeah. Well, yeah. My thing is, right, like I'd be buying 5 cases of units so I could have 5 sets of each dude. You know, so I got a complete play set. That's my deal. So I still, and there's still just something awesome about opening up that blind box and discovering what you found, you know. And it's peaks and valleys, you know. Oh, I got this one already. But then there's also the cool interactions. You get to go into your game store and trade, and there's a whole social dynamic that happens with, the collectible games that just doesn't take place with other gaming, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's an advantage to that, because when you have strong communities for your games, you've got more people to play with, and you've got more people that you're willing to play with because you've already had some you've had a reason to break the ice and to get to know them, right? Which was, hey, would you like to trade that figure? Would you be interested in taking this figure? Then there's some other, benefits for stores and stuff like that, right? You only have one or two SKUs, your starters, boosters, in our case 3, because we've got, the 3 boosters, or 2 boosters in the starter, which makes it very easy for stores to stock it, right? They buy a case, they're getting a whole plethora of different stuff in there, and, it's easy inventory because they just have to have one SKU to keep track of, right? It makes it easier for their ordering and their selling and stuff on those lines. So I think the blind buy still has some legs. I know some people might be a little down, but I think there's still people that can enjoy it, or can enjoy the game as well as it being a blind buy, if you will.
Well, let me ask you this as a follow-up to that, because I think one of the big concerns a lot of people have about blind purchase games is that Joe Gamer can't afford 24 boxes; he can only afford 3. You've played the game a lot, obviously. Is it in Monster? Some of these games, if you can find that one figure, you're just unstoppable. Is Monsterpocalypse like that, or is Monsterpocalypse, if you've got the monster in his ultra form and you've got 3 or 4 units or 5 units and 2 or 3 or 4 buildings, are you going to be okay in this game, or do you need to really be able to find the ultimate combo for your set and really go on the all out hunt to find all the pieces to have a competitive force?
So I think your question is really kind of, do I have to spend a lot to play Monsterpocalypse, right?
To play it without knowing I'm going to lose all the time.
Get down to the essence of it, and I think that, to be honest, if someone's savvy, they could buy 3 unit boosters, and a starter, and then maybe a couple monster boosters here or there or something, just more for the fun of it, and then through some good trading, actually be able to trade up to a really respectable force. The rares are useful, just like any other card or any other figure is, but we don't use rarity as a balancing factor in the game.
Okay.
So,
to
some extent, right, and there's cost on those guys, right? Like the elites cost too, and to be honest, like on those elite guys, I only run 1 or 2 of them per every 2 to 3 of the grunts that I play with,
Gotcha.
So I run them in little squads. Having 5 and 5 isn't really, the most useful expenditure of your force slots.
Right.
So I think with some good trading, you can do it. There's back in the old days of the CCG, I had a buddy who bought 1 starter deck and a booster from AC Expansion from a really popular, well-known collectible card game.
That will remain nameless?
Yeah, and via trading, he actually had himself a really awesome deck that he was able to put together that could hold its own versus anyone. That guy actually was Dave Williams, the guy who kind of got me into the whole game industry publishing side of things. So, but yeah, so I think if you're willing to trade and make some sacrifices, if you just take a bunch of hodgepodge stuff, you can have a great time, and you can definitely be competitive, because I think the game is very monster centric,
right?
And that's the most important thing. So, but your units and the buildings that you bring are added bonuses, right? And so if you get the ones that complement your monster, it's just there are more advantages that are on your side of the table.
Sure.
So, yeah,
makes sense.
Right.
I buy it.
You already have
did buy it.
I did buy it, and I love it.
He's going to keep buying it.
That's
and
right.
Yes, sir.
He's the baddest man in gaming. Watch out.
That's true.
All right, I got one more question that I don't know if Russ or Craig answered yet on that. Not on the collectible, but just on Monsterpocalypse in general. Now that you're working, as you said, but on the second and third phases of it, are there things that you want to put into Monsterpocalypse that, for whatever reason, you can't put in? Either due to time, because time's run out, or is there something in the game that you'd like to see that just can't get in yet, or something?
Well, I'd really love to do just monsters that were a whole foot tall or something like that, but the game just won't accommodate those. I'd love to see like a 12-inch or 24-inch Gorgatra, but I think that would just be a different kind of toy or product or something.
Right. Well, all the collectible miniature games eventually have something like that.
I was going to say, I don't know.
Halo
That's
Scarab
like
and the Colossus for all that stuff.
Yeah, and Star Wars having the AT-AT
Right,
Walker,
yeah,
and that's pretty cool.
But,
At a time.
All right, so
outside of that, though, the game's it's got the skills to pay the bills, if you will.
Right.
It's got everything I'd really want in a game for that. And there's, I can always make up new abilities. And as I've been working on this and working new stuff into these sets, I've found out that I can work with the tools I'm given, and occasionally I make up a new ability, and it just makes it that much easier. So it's got everything I need as a designer to keep it fresh and exciting for quite a time.
Cool. Now, can you tease us with anything that you're looking to add to the game, maybe? In the
dang,
second
that
or
was
third
my exact
phase?
next question.
There you go.
Oh, I'm reading lines too now.
Yeah, I'm still in that probationary first year.
But you're the baddest man in gaming. How can anyone intimidate you? Come on.
Yeah. I'm the baddest man in gaming. He's got to, pay the rent, keep my wife in the lifestyle she's become accustomed to. Pretty much just includes eating. I work in the game industry, but
Well, let me ask you this then. I noticed you guys did just announce, though, a couple new products coming out before December, right? What are those? Is there a strategy guide?
The strategy guide, yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So there's this awesome, insightful, brilliantly written strategy guide that I
Who wrote that, Eric?
Wait, Erik.
That you'll actually be able to buy that the day the game comes out.
Sweet.
So, in October 10th is our release date.
Right.
You should be able to see it. Now, if your store doesn't have it, you need to ask them, because some places think it might be coming out in November or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But it'll be available that day. So inside the strategy guide, along with strategy articles and such, also includes a complete spoiler of all the figures, including the promo figures and the preview figures that will be available in the organized play kits. And that's a pretty big bonus right there. So you can know what to hunt for, know how to put together an army, know what figures are going to help you out the most. And then it also comes with a double-sided map, which features a new map feature, which is like these little teleporter spots, which you can move from one teleportation place to another.
Oh, neat.
So you can be hopping all over the map. And then after the strategy guide, in November, we're going to be releasing a map pack, which has 6 new maps.
Wow.
And all those maps are covered in the strategy guide, so you can check out the maps ahead of time, kind of like a preview.
Oh, nice.
And the map pack also comes with the building called the government building. And you can only have one of the government building in your force, but it gives you basically a boost die to your power rolls, which
neat.
is pretty awesome.
That is
Helps
pretty
out your dice a lot.
Oh, very neat. So there's the new strategy guide. There's the map packs. And isn't there something else coming out with color markers or something, so you can mark your monsters or something like that?
Yeah, well, I almost forgot. Yeah, the accessory pack is coming out, and the accessory pack has an extra set of dice, another monster health tracker, so you can play 2 monster games, or have an extra track when you play 2 monster games. But the best part is it has 31 of these colored rings that's either in red or blue, that just attached to the bottom of the figure. You know how there's a little square where you can see the collector information on the bottom?
Yep.
Well, it kind of snaps into that and kind of just raises up the monster by 1/8 of an inch or so. And it has a little blue ring underneath him so that you'll be able to tell that, hey, all the stuff with blue is mine. And that way you don't have to be touching other people's stuff and passing your germs around.
Right. So if you go so when it's 2 of the same race fighting each other, whatever, you can tell who's or who. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think, Russ, what was that you did? Oh, that was with the Star Wars ships. You put
Well, I
rubber
used to
band.
play a different collectible game called Dreamscape, and I had to put colored rubber bands around the guys to figure that out because everybody got confused who's or who's. So that's a neat. I like that it's built in.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
That's a great accessory.
I actually just wrote up a article for my blog that's going to be talking about what you can do until those rings come out, like taking little twist ties or like the rubber bands like you were talking about. Because, I'm from the same old school where, please don't touch my stuff.
Right.
Right.
Keep your hands off my stuff.
And what's that blog, Eric, if people want to check it out?
Oh, that would be monsterinsider.net.
Right.
And that would be you,
Yeah,
the Monster Insider.
You're right.
All right, well,
And that's, of course, on the World Wide Web.
I have one more follow-up question.
All right.
All right.
Now, Erik, we've mentioned several times that your nickname is the baddest man in gaming. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Raef has his own nickname here on the show called Hollywood. And he got this nickname because he basically gave it to himself. So I'd like to know how you got your nickname. Did you give that to yourself, or is it actually something? How did you go about becoming the baddest man in gaming?
Well, I am the, quite a large man, and, I used to, tell people I was the baddest man on the football field and stuff like that. And, it was a not so much a nickname as a moniker and a element of self-promotion and branding.
Right. Hey, personal branding's always, it's like having your own theme song, right, wherever you go.
Donald Trump would definitely approve.
He
Because
would.
if you're not going to brand yourself, who's going to brand you?
That's right.
Exactly.
Excellent.
So, and if you don't brand yourself, you run the risk of someone else branding you, and defining, your product. So you got to be the first out there with your message. But,
It's all
I was
about
riding to work
self-promotion.
one day on my Harley, and, someone, knows, man, you look like, a badass biker, and they were kind of making fun of me. And I just kind of started thinking about it. I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure I could take him. Like, well, Mike Tyson used to call himself the baddest man on the planet, and I'm pretty sure I can't take him, so I'll give him the planet.
You'll just take the generally not athletic group of gamers and become the baddest man in
I
gaming.
like your calculus, though. There's a lot of thought there.
There was a lot of thought there. That's very clever. It's like the baddest man in crochet,
Funny story. The very first convention I ever went to, me and my best friend Johnny were walking through the convention hall wearing our letterman's jackets, and it was like all the game attendees were just kind of parting ways for us, right? Because that's back when I was in shape and had some more girth to my arms and that kind of stuff.
He was ripped.
And made a comment about it, and so I just. But the real reason why I'm the baddest man in gaming is because I can get the job done, right? I go in there and I hustle and I work my ass off and make sure the job gets done to the best of my ability. So
There you
that's
go.
really where it comes
We're
from.
back to hustle again.
See, that's a core component.
Erik is the go-to guy for everything except Spanish language translations.
Right, apparently.
And you know what? We don't need any of that here.
I think I have a feeling I know what Russ is going to pick for the intro music to this show now, this famous 70s song.
Oh, no, I already got the music picked out in my head.
Yeah. All right, so I just have my last two questions.
Not Leroy Brown.
Do you guys have any more?
No, go ahead, Raef. Finish her off, baby.
All right, Erik, you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, right off the top of your head, without thinking, without having to worry about it, just boom, just put it out there. Your favorite book or movie?
Favorite book or movie? My favorite movie is V for Vendetta, and that I'm not usually one to jump on the new movies or anything like that, but that one got me in a way that I would love to single-handedly overthrow my government.
Unusual pick, too. I like that. I can respect that.
Yeah, I like that pick, too.
It's a good movie.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Before that, it was The Color of Money, though.
All right, well.
Okay.
No accounting for taste.
I like that movie. That movie's great. Okay, the last one I have to set up with a little explanation, and I love this part because this is when Craig and Russ get nervous.
I'm nervous.
Hey, Erik, are you familiar with the board game that came out, Battlestar Galactica?
I have not played it yet.
But you're familiar of it and what it's like or whatever.
You have like secret Cylon players or something like that going?
Yeah. That's the game. Yeah. Yep. And are you familiar with the game Agricola?
No.
Good man.
Good man.
Okay. That might
Like
answer
him
the
more and
question.
more.
But, Agricola is a farming-based economy game.
Hey, Rafe, here's a tip. You can't be the baddest man in gaming and
like
play Agricola.
games based on
Hey, well,
farming.
we're going to put that theory to the test.
Right.
So Agricola is a farming-based economy game, Erik. All right, so if someone was holding a gun to your head and you had to play one game of the following two games, Agricola or Battlestar Galactica?
Oh, jeez. Is there any? Okay, Erik. Do us proud, Erik.
Oh, man. So I got to choose one, and I can't pull out my gun and shoot them first?
No. Nope.
can't even pick a private press product. That is cruel, unusual punishment.
Yeah, that's just mean.
Oh man. Well, I'm gonna have to go with the farming game because I got to see what they did with it because I don't know anything about it. And
all right,
so,
see.
But that's feeding the curiosity factor there.
Okay.
All right. He did say he likes his mechanics, so maybe we'll
score one for Hollywood.
And he did go for the lead farmer line here, which I can respect.
That one kind of like one of them German games.
It's one of them German games.
Yeah,
it's pretty much what it is.
It's in the Middle Ages,
A lot
right
of great board games and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's not a bad game at all. It's just a unique.
Craig
theme.
and Russ hate it, Eric. They hate them.
They don't hate it.
I don't hate it at all. It loses me on theme.
There's no hate in the show.
That's right.
I'm very disappointed in Agricola.
Right.
That's a good.
All right. So that's all I have. Unless Eric wants to wrap up with one last thing or anything.
Yeah. Any last comments there, Eric, for your fans?
Oh, man, I just appreciate you guys having me on. I love doing this stuff, and anytime you want to give me a call, heck, you could even just do it out of the blue in the middle of the show, and you're just like, let's find out what Eric has to say.
All right, cool.
Okay,
that's it. We're putting you on speed dial, Eric. That's it.
I like it.
Awesome.
We'll hold you up to that.
All right, great. All right, thanks so much, Eric.
Thank you very much, Eric. It's nice to talk to you again.
Did you ever notice is brought to you this week by Robert Stotch, who would like you to notice that Monday night at Gamers Sanctuary in Flint, Michigan is Full Metal Monday. War Machine and Hordes. See you there. Did you ever notice that friendly local gaming stores pop up in clusters, like mushrooms, and then drop quickly, like flies? Did you ever notice that many friendly local gaming stores have a very similar success curve? Many of them open to a great fanfare and lots of local interest, and go strongly for a while as their niche or gimmick kicks in, but then, seemingly often almost overnight, they're gone. In fact, if you're successful in your observations, don't you see a lot of patterns with friendly local gaming stores? Have you noticed that most of them are run by very friendly people who are almost always very excited about games and love to play them? Most of them try so hard to create an environment where you'll want to go to play games again and again and again. But, quite often, despite the best of intentions and hardest work imaginable, so often they just fade away. Why is that? Well, gentle listeners, I'll tell you why tonight, or at least why I think it happens, and hopefully we'll save some of those FLGSs out there and keep our hobby going just a little bit longer. See, the way I see it, the primary problem with most foundering FLGSs is that their owners see themselves as gamers first and business people second. It makes a certain amount of sense, really. You love gaming, you come into a little money, or put investors together, or you cobble together a series of loans you think you can handle, and voila! You've got yourself a dream job where you can play games all day and make other gamers happy. Sounds like a dream come true, right? Then why does it so often end like a nightmare? The secret is the mindset. If you're a gamer first and a business owner second, you're going to make some really bad business decisions, most likely. You're going to do things for your customers because you like them, not because they're good customers. You're going to stock the latest, coolest stuff because you want everyone to have it, not because you've seen that it's going to sell well. And quite often you're going to foster a relationship with your customer base that is one where, due to the sad limits of human nature, they're going to get way more out of you, the guy who has access to all that cool stuff, than you get out of them, the consumer that's going to start expecting all those sweetheart deals and discounts and will always go where they can get the most stuff for the smallest amount of money. See, when you get right down to it, we customers aren't your friends. I mean, we can be, outside of the business relationship, and all the best store owners are friends with almost everyone who walks through their doors. But where the rubber hits the road, you've got to give to get, or, eventually, you'll find the getting's not so good anymore. So the first thing a game store owner has to do is take some business classes. They need to understand what kind of a business model they want to follow. They have to know what a business model is. They have to know what sort of overarching philosophy is going to drive their attempt to make money. Because make no mistake, folks, most game stores have to make money. There are a few stores out there owned by independently wealthy gamers who have taken this route as entertainment in their retirement, but everyone else has to make money. The next thing the store owner has to do is take pride in their premises. We've all gone to a McDonald's or whatever passes for common fast food in your area of the world, although if I could get Mickey D's in Cairo, I'm pretty sure you can get one close by to wherever you are right now, where they don't take care of the joint. It's dirty and creepy, and to be honest, you probably won't be going back there again if you can help it. And then there are other restaurants where they take really good care of the place, and you don't mind going in there again and again and again. And again in my case. You have to keep your store clean. Professional stores are clean. In fact, they spend hours making sure they're clean all the time. If you want to run this store as your dream job, you have to run it like a real store and keep it clean. And finally, in my top 3, you have to manage your inventory. You have to know what you're buying to stock those shelves will sell. And you have to know what the people want when they want it. Not what they're curious about, but what they're actually going to want. What they're going to spend money on. Many's the store that's gone under, weighed down beneath thousands of dollars of bad product that everybody thought was cool, but nobody wanted to buy. Airsoft guns stacked to the ceiling in the local game stores sound familiar to anyone? There's a lot more to making your store a success, of course, and these are only my opinions after watching many great stores rise and fall, for many different reasons. Games Workshop once paid me a little sum while training me to recognize a good investment from a faltering one, so I guess I'll add that to my bona fides too. But primarily, really, it's just stuff I've noticed. So my friends, if you're out there, take a look around your friendly local gaming store. Make sure the owner knows you notice and appreciate all that hard work. Help keep the place clean. It is his job to clean the place, but really, that's no reason for you to take advantage and be a slob, right? And make sure, if you have a great place to game, that you're giving that owner a reason to stay open besides your bright and shiny face gracing his doorstep once a week. Buy something. Help run an event. Or at least attend events. Take an interest in your local gaming hole, or you'll be back in the basement playing the same guys over and over again. And there are thousands and thousands of gamers around the world who fervently wish they had a local gaming store. You do them all a disservice when you take yours for granted. That's it for this edition. If you have any suggestions for future GR notices, please feel free to email me at craig@d6generation.com. Good night.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA discussions forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from When Wives Attack comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.